Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Smudcast number 859. What is the message of Star Wars? And I'm assuming that's the entire message of the entire series, not one movie here or there. And I don't know. I don't think there is a message. I think Star Wars is not that deep. I think there are themes. I think there are philosophies from individual characters and individual scenes, but there's no overarching message or moral that I can think of, unless you want to go specific.
Have courage.
Be good.
Stand up for your friends.
Believe in family. I don't know. There's lots. Yeah. All kinds. Yoda's got a whole bunch. Everything he says is a freaking message. Anyway, this is from JJ Plagiarisms. It came out March of this year. It's got almost 3,000 views, and he has about almost 13,000 subs on his channel. So I don't know if this is going to be a good takedown of Star Wars, or he's going to be critical of the stories. I'm not sure what to expect. It's 24 minutes long. We should have a lot to work with here. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But hopefully we're going to go in depth at least one of the, maybe the first film. That'll probably be the best. Just go to the original, see what the messages of all these wonderful writing from Mr. Lucas. We could say he's a good writer to give us messages to derive some idea of philosophy or moral. I don't know. I really can't think of a really basic moral from these stories that you think, oh yeah, this is why I took from the scene of Luke looking at the horizon. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Don't think so. Anyway, here we go. 24 minutes.
Story has to have a moral, or at the very least...
Let's try that again.
Any meaningful story has to have a moral, or at the very least have something to say.
Not
meaningful. Not just story, but meaningful.
I could say 2 + 2 is 4 as a story. I mean, there's meaning in there. There's mathematical meaning.
I wouldn't disagree too hard with this.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell a story about a kid going to buy milk and derive whatever meaning you want from that.
Okay, so I'm worried from the outset because he's using the Jedi theme from Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic 2,
which is a good piece of music, but it
is good, but it's also it's steeped in the all the philosophical goings on of that game.
Right, which is to subvert the concept of Star Wars. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not the best track.
And on top of that, the moral should be insightful and not self-destructive.
Why can't you have a self-destructive moral? Like the hero sacrifices himself at the end for his family or for the rest of life.
That's not. I wouldn't consider that truly self-destructive, because that is you giving your life for the next generation, or to sustain at least the present, so that the next generation can be.
Well, yeah.
But that's the story of the Edda.
Well, that is the hope of the person committing the sacrifice, but it's still self-destructive. You're still destroying yourself. So
I wouldn't say so.
But you are killing yourself. Like, look at Armageddon is an example of the father.
Self-sacrifice is not the same as self-destruction.
Yes, it is. You're destroying yourself.
There is a distinctive line. There's a distinct line between there.
Well,
because one is pointless. The other has a point.
I'm not saying there shouldn't be any meaning. I'm just saying the act of killing yourself is self-destructive, and that's what happens in these stories. So.
It depends though, because when people sacrifice themselves, and it ends up with them dying, it's generally they're not killing themselves so much as they're being killed, and they're willing to be killed in order to
or risk being killed.
Yeah, they're doing it for a purpose. I get that, but the act, you're still being destroyed. Like the physical mechanical operation of dying is still there. So,
but then if you go that far, you could stretch it to the argument that a woman giving birth is self-destructive because she might die in labor.
Okay, that's possibility, yeah.
And stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, the way he worded this, I didn't really like how he explained himself here. Anyway, it's very technical.
Like any other of its kind, has a message that is meant to incite us and teach us a valuable lesson.
Okay.
But what is...
Okay, so yes, some stories have morals and lessons and messages, but that's like a specific scene in a story, not the whole. Unless you're talking about a parable, like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, like that's a very small story. So there's not much else to take from that aside from the lesson. So in Star Wars, Yoda has all kinds of messages. So do or do not.
I don't think we need to go as far as Yoda because you can stay just in the New Hope.
Sure.
He goes about everything as he takes scenes from everywhere, but we can just stay in New Hope, and we have the same message there, the same meaning there as any martial arts flick, which is the useless hero runs into a problem, learns the art, faces his nemesis, and wins because he has courage and he applies himself.
Well,
he finds courage in himself that he didn't have before, or that he was too arrogant at first and has to be humbled.
But the message of episode 4 is kind of like not necessarily just good versus, that's the theme, good versus evil, but the idea of believing that a small group of people can fight a big empire, which is impossible, like destroying the Death Star, is seemingly impossible. And it's through science fiction that we're allowed to believe that with science fantasy. And then there's the message of science fantasy, which is the death of Obi-Wan telling Luke to do whatever in the cockpit. So it's like, okay, if you have superpowers and you really believe and you can fly very well and a crazy science fiction environment, then that's the moral of the story. I don't know. It's a bit too contrived for my brain to wrap it around what's going on, because these are specific scenes that work, not the overall story message. Anyway, Vladimir, hey, sir, how's it going? Today I learned that dinosaurs, like most of you, didn't touch grass. Oh. Mostly because grass didn't begin to evolve until the end of the Cretaceous period. That's a good point. Did herbivores touch or eat the grass?
Cretaceous?
Cretaceous.
Cretaceous? Crustaceous? Cretaceous. Okay.
Cretaceous. So that means there were no British lawns anywhere.
Okay. We're 20 seconds in.
Imagine a time without the British.
That is disturbing.
Did it have pesticides at least? Or maybe proto-pesticides? Like in the sacks of some sort of insect we never identified yet? I don't know.
Why would you have an insect with pesticides? It would kill itself.
It would have its own, like...
That would be quite self-destructive, Smut.
Oh, they would have had natural immunity because they were millions of years old. Anyway.
What's like humans have natural immunity to bullets?
Yeah, I know. It happens to some of us behind steel walls.
Exactly. I think it's best to focus on George Lucas's complete saga,
okay,
as that's the best way to examine the message.
So 4 to 6 and 1 to 3. That's oh god, dude, you're hurting yourself here. Here we go.
Into anything else Star Wars. So Star Wars, I would say, is about the contrast between being selfless versus selfish.
That is what George Lucas says about the light side versus the dark side. That the light side is generally selfless, where you put others above, in front of yourself. Whereas the dark side is where you put yourself above all.
I guess
the dark side is ego. That is very clear.
Yeah,
and it's to the point of self-destruction for a lot of people,
right,
including Darth Vader.
I would say that's
who is the prime example.
You can argue that both sides are that in excess.
Well, yeah. Even in episode 1, the idea was that the Jedi were so up their own ass that they couldn't perceive anything taking the whole Republic down, or they couldn't see what was happening. But there's no real explanation. There's no real introversion. There's no exposition on that. It's just sort of, we don't know. Well, there could be some Sith out there. I have no idea. So it's never really explored.
So the Jedi were too integrated with the corrupt, at that point, Republic. So they basically down with the Republic.
I don't know. The idea is that this Dooku guy was turned evil, but he hid himself very well, and he got it to make an army and move all these things behind the scenes, and the Jedi were like, duh, I don't know.
I mean, Jar Jar was supposed to be a much more present character in Episode 2, but George Lucas ended up changing a lot of Episode 2, including adding in Count Dooku to the story.
Yeah.
Because people were throwing a fit about how Jar Jar was a bit... they didn't like Jar Jar, and looking back with the benefit of hindsight, I maintain that Jar Jar Binks was a character who was done too well, and also that what really ruined the prequel trilogy is, it's generally good, but what the worst part of it is Episode 4, A New Hope, because there's parts of the prequel trilogy that don't really have time to breathe, and it could have really benefited from having another episode just to fill in some of the gaps.
I would just say,
or making each movie an hour longer.
Well,
there's actually a lot of people who do strongly recommend watching the Clone Wars in between episodes 2 and 3.
I know,
so that you don't go into episode 3 and get completely blindsided.
I still think that the writing
is
for
what it was made for.
The writing for 1 to 3 really needed a lot of editing, and just to clarify what the hell's going on. If you're
watching the movies on their merits, Smud, if you're watching the movies on their merit, then the whole watch this cartoon series, that's not watching the movies on their own merit. That's having supplemental material become mandatory.
It helps watching the Phantom edits of the first 3 movies, which have excluded some annoying scenes and included some of the cut-out scenes and paced them way better. They feel more like Star Wars. The strangest thing is Episode 1, which is missing about, I think, 45 minutes even, and it's better because those are all most of those 45 minutes are comprised of Jar Jar Binks and droid jokes.
Well, even with
you take those out and it feels like Star Wars.
Well, even with Episode 5, which people say is their favorite or their best or whatever, it's pretty much Luke saying, I got to go help my friends, and everyone's saying, don't do that, and he gets reprimanded, and he loses his arm, and he nearly dies. So that at least has a way of looking at the story as Luke is the driving force, and he has to realize what's important to him and how he's going to get there. And he nearly sacrifices everything to save his friends and doesn't really achieve too much. So that probably is the cleanest of all of them, and it's the most different out of all the out of the 3 at least.
The way I always felt about Empire Strikes Back was that it is an unbelievably strong interlude. Like you feel there's more coming, and it's just over at some point. But you want it to keep going because there's so much going on.
Yeah, that's the premise of a lot of science fiction or space opera stories like Mass Effect. People love the second game because it's not about the big bad and the big overarching plot. It's about, we're in this cool universe doing cool stuff. Let's check it out. And that's what ends up happening. And with Star Wars, of course, you have superpowers and spaceship battles and lightsaber battles. So that is just, hey, I like this place. I want more of this stuff. And that's what we should have gotten. We should have gotten more and more of that, as opposed to this weird arc of Vader. And then we had to do a whole prequel arc just on Vader alone. It's like, listen, Vader's cool and all, but he's not that important to the story.
Not just Vader, but also Obi-Wan, and the mother of Luke and Leia.
It could work with just a few tweaks and then some Lucas having a friend who's just respects him enough to tell him no, and that Lucas respects enough to accept the no from.
Oh yeah.
That's all it needed.
If the first the first few episodes,
someone who sees through the awe of the man.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever saw the behind the scenes stuff. It was just like an army of yes men, just like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Oh, this is good. And all Lucas is doing is point. I want that. I want that. I want that droid. He looks cool. I like that spaceship. And yeah, I like that. Like, that's all he was doing. It's like, this is not how you make stuff. This is just a bunch of people drawing pictures and animators making them. It was silly.
It's as if Jodorowsky could have made his Dune movie. Because that would have been bonkers.
Can you imagine?
It would not have worked. I don't believe it would have looked amazing, but I don't believe it would have worked, and I don't believe it would have been Dune.
No, it would not have been. If he had billions of dollars and artists to make him stuff like every week, and he just like point and choose, you know how crazy Dune would have been? Like the ornithopters, how they would have looked, and the faces, and all the tongues, and the crazy aliens. It's just like, oh, this is nuts.
And there are barely any aliens in Dune.
I know. But he wanted all these massive heads coming out of the sand. Like, what the hell? What are you talking about, you crazy man? Anyway.
He was on different drugs than her.
Oh, that was a lot of drugs. If you guys ever watched that documentary, like, whoa.
Beautiful.
This is
it's
nuts.
beautiful. And it reveals so much about Hollywood. Hollywood to this day draws from Jodorowsky's work that never got on screen.
Which Dune movie is this anyway? Is it the one with Sting?
No. That was what's the name? Smart. What was that one?
Frank Herbert's Dune, 1984.
No. God, no. The Dune movie with Sting.
Yeah. Frank. Yeah, the original.
No, it's not Frank. Not the author. The director.
Oh, the director.
Tip
sorry.
Of my tongue.
Yeah. David Lynch.
Right. David Lynch. So no, Jodorowsky was somebody else who wanted to make a Dune movie before Lynch, and really get a documentary. It's called Jodorowsky's Dune. I'll put it in chat in a second. Sorry, gas in my stomach. And he had a team of absolutely brilliant artists, sculptors, musicians around him, and they were working together on all these great setups for a Dune movie that went way beyond the content of Dune, and all of this, it was never realized. It was never made into a movie. It was works of years. But this stuff, the sketches, the scenes, the backgrounds, the alien ideas, Hollywood fed off of that work to this day. You have these things spill into Terminator, into the Alien movies, into Covenant has a very distinct one where you remember this big dome-like building with the skull on top. That was from
I've not seen that movie.
That was anyway. Somebody who's in the audience. That thing was from the sketches for Jodorowsky's Dune movie, which was supposed to be the Harkonnen Palace, where you would enter into the giant head, the giant mouth of Baron Harkonnen.
That was H.R. Geiger. I think he's the guy who drew all those concept arts.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like, this artwork was like so crazy before Alien came out, before any of this other stuff. And you're like, oh my God. If this was actually realized, like it doesn't make much sense if you haven't read the books because you don't have anything to compare it to.
It doesn't. None of this is in the books.
Yeah. So you're like, where is?
It's just.
Yeah. It's
creativity beyond.
It's so like, what would a futuristic world of space travelers that are like psychopaths? What would they do? Like, okay, yeah, they'd have like heads and skulls and like, oh my God. Anyway, back to the video.
All right, Star Wars. Hello.
dark side. In many ways, it is about being good or evil, but there's obviously a lot more to it than that. Anakin as the central character is shown making many selfish decisions that cause the demise of many people, including himself. But the story also showed that he struggled a lot with his choices, which is practically saying that often the right choice is not always.
So he made a lot of bad choices and he struggled a lot with his choices. You should have revised that script.
Easy, and it's always tempting to be selfish. That's basically how the dark side is treated, that it's the quick and easy way to power.
He wanted to save Padme and therefore believed Palpatine.
Yeah.
That initially was a selfless thing. He did it for somebody else. And of course, he himself didn't want to lose Padme. You can argue that is a selfish thing, but the entire trick of the dark side is that it exploits your altruism in order to make you do shitty things, which is what a certain side of politics is especially good at. That always plays on, hey, we're totally the good guys and we give you good things, and if you work for us, you're a good person.
Well,
and then they make you build utopias where people die en masse.
In the case of Lucas, how he got Anakin to Vader in those 3 episodes was really shoddy. And saying he had to go save his mom, so he slaughtered a village to do it. It's like, okay, wait a second. Why did that have to happen? Did he not have...
Vengeance.
Yeah, he's going through all this training, and he couldn't control his emotions for a decade, apparently.
The village he slaughtered, they were basically raiders who basically tortured his mother to death. They tortured her so much that she was only able to hold on barely long enough for him to get to her.
Sand people are not good people.
Yeah, but he had to kill everyone. He killed the entire village. It wasn't just the torturers. It was like everything he saw. You're like, okay.
They're goblins.
Then why was he sad? He should have been happy. He's like, I killed them all. Yeah.
Yeah, but Mommy is still dead.
I'm sad my mom died, but I killed them all. I felt good. Like, it should have been an obvious thing.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, but the killing didn't bring Mommy back. That's why he's
He
still
knew
sad.
that. No, that's stupid. Come on.
Smart. Do you understand human emotions?
So childish, this juvenile thinking.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, my mother was tortured to death. Oh, I should be happy. What the fuck?
I should be...
So he, in his rage and grief, killed a bunch of sapient creatures.
Their culture was shit.
Then he realized, they're women and children too. It's like, okay. But...
Well, their culture was shit, so how do you make their culture better?
They're a bunch of marauders who kill people. Like, that's
want to do some integration thing into wider non-desert society?
Well, I just
do
think
we have a program for that?
Think of it.
Do we have to tax fund that?
Think of going through the process of going through vengeance, like going through the mechanics of killing, I don't know, dozens of people, whatever it is, and then at the end, you take your mom's body, you drag it all the way through to where you're coming on your speeder bike or whatever. You get back to your girlfriendish person, and you start crying. I'm just like, what the fuck? What's wrong with you?
It's when you let it out.
You're a Jedi. You have excellent control of your emotions, but apparently not.
No, he doesn't. He was because he entered training too late.
Oh yeah,
that's why he's
yeah.
shit at it.
Sure, he did do that for 10 years.
That's why he develops an attack, and that's why when he has the vision of her dying, he does willingly follow Palpatine's plan and turn to the dark side.
Right, because he killed his people.
We're not saying Lucas wrote it well, but this was the idea.
Yeah, I know.
You also have to take into consideration that Anakin, even though he left the planet at age 6, he still grew up there. He knows the culture there, and he has obvious thoughts and knowledge of the cultures there as far as he remembers. So he was taught about the Sand Raiders, about the Sand People, and how dangerous they are, and what they do, and then they did it. So he goes, fuck them.
Okay, so is it?
They were not the children in the temple.
Was he feeling remorse, or was he just sad his mom died?
He was sad his mom died.
Okay, then it doesn't make a difference.
What should he feel remorse for?
Because he killed the women and children.
Who probably taught the other kids to become
okay,
evil?
then which one is it? I don't know. What's the problem
here? It's not so much that he killed them that he'd feel remorse so much as he lost control.
Okay, so
he lost control and just went on a killing. So he gave in to his anger and went on to killing.
So the issue is he wasn't, or he's trying to be a Jedi. He didn't do a very good Jedi thing, and he's lamenting the loss of his discipline and everything he represents, essentially, right?
Also, the loss of his mother.
Well, yeah.
There's a whole list of emotions that he's going through in that scene, and
see, this is the issue that the story does not address. We're not clear on what he's going through. We know he's angry because his mom died, but is he also angry that he killed a bunch of everyone else? You see, this is fine. You could have a bunch of plots. You could have a bunch of I'm doing this because of that, and this happened because of that. That's great. But tell me what's going on so that I can figure out what you are going through and why you're feeling the way you are, because there's too much happening. And that was the entire trilogy of there's so much going on. There's so many things blowing up and plot threads of characters, and I'm like, okay.
It doesn't take time to breathe.
That's why it could really benefit from having additional time.
No. See, this is where we're thinking improperly. We need more. I'm sure if we had 20 more chapters, we could explain everything. That's great. That's not what a movie is. You could do that in a book. You could do that in a whatever. But a movie is an hour and a half experience, not a 3-hour extended edition, 4-hour thing. Where
let's say 2 hours.
Well,
2 hours is okay.
These movies are so long, and we know there's more content that was cut out, and some that wouldn't even make the cut. So this is what I mean by bad writing or a lack of editing. That George just threw all these ideas and said, "Hey, this connects. Let's get that in the screen." It's like, okay, yeah, that could work. And then it has 4 other ideas trying to run alongside that, and it just we got to marry Sue in episode 1.
Yeah, and his choice of how to do exposition doesn't work. Because it's just this sitting around, walking around the couch or sitting at a dinner table and talking as a group. He's not focusing on the individual character who gets a quiet moment to introspect and reflect, which is where you would get the why did the shit happen? And you could do this without words. You just give you give instead scenes of the mind, of memories and such, of how things worked. That's one way to do this. You can make this more fluent, and that is what it doesn't do. Well, on the other hand, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings uses a lot of quiet scenes, a lot of quiet moments, and those characters don't even have that much to reflect on. And yet we understand their motivations perfectly.
Yeah, those are trilogies that you could probably watch every year. The J.R. Tolkien stuff.
Yeah, and on another thing in for Anakin, and that is again something that you don't see enough of in the movies. That is that Obi-Wan wasn't up for the task of being Anakin's teacher, which is why he's also a bit. Why he isn't as well in control. What we see, and we see this in this little bit in the movies, he's mostly quippy with Anakin. It's more on a brotherly. What's the English word? It's not mobbing. It's this banter. It's this like little pokes, little psychological pokes
ribbing.
Of what?
Ribbing.
Well, it's also
I'm sure that's the word. But the problem is that in Anakin, who's growing up still, that just creates a constant state of insecurity of, am I doing things right at all? Well, Obi-Wan isn't a good teacher in that regard, and we see this if you look in beyond the movies into the Clone Wars show. It's there the entire time. Obi-Wan is not actually a spiritual teacher to Anakin that helps Anakin grow up. He's just making demands and giving him insults.
Well,
that doesn't work.
I would toss out the first film as any form of.
You can actually see So you can actually see the failure of their relationship in the scene that's currently on screen right now. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
I thought he was killing
Oh,
him.
they actually say it. You're right.
Anakin had a brother in Obi-Wan when he needed a father figure, which is what Qui-Gon would have been if Qui-Gon survived episode 1.
I have a problem with the entire concept of the Jedi because there was no training that we saw with Anakin, that he just grew up and we assumed he went through all the training and he did very well because he's amazing. It's like, if he's amazing, that means he did
well. Yeah, but Smart, here's the thing. He did well in because that's what we see. He did well in force power. He did well in lightsaber fighting. But he is shit on the spiritual end.
That's what doesn't make sense. That's what does not.
That's what's missing.
That's what does not.
That's why he fails.
Well, no,
and that is Obi-Wan's
That's
fault.
what we don't see. That's what we aren't not told of, or at least mentioned.
You mean we don't see that is what he didn't get.
Everything about him is awesome. Like, he's the best at everything. And you're like, okay, so he's the best at meditating and understanding the Force and discipline and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, why isn't that being shown? He's just a kid. When we get to episode 2, it's assumed all of this has been done, and he's amazing. And with the dialogue from Lucas and the performance of Christensen, it's just like, this does not feel right. Something's off here. And I don't know.
think I'm okay with not seeing that part of Anakin. It would round it out, but I'm okay with not seeing that because we already have the original trilogy. We know he's gonna be the strongest guy.
That's not enough.
And
you can't...
Also, we weren't told that he'd be the best at understanding the Force so much as he'd be the most powerful.
But that's what we need. We need the scene where Luke is with Yoda and he's making mistakes. We need that scene with Hayden, or before Hayden, maybe in between. I don't care. Do a collage where he's screwing up. He's really powerful, but he's screwing it up, and he's breaking.
Yeah, but the other way. I would say the other way around. In parts. So for one, Luke is a new character. Through him, we get to know the world, and he gets humbled throughout, and that's why he works on a spiritual, on a character level. That's why he's a good person. Anakin gets told since childhood, you are the chosen one, and then he is super powerful and everything, but he does not get humbled. So that's the part we would need to see, where everything he does works, but he doesn't get a brick to the face that humbles him. That's what we need.
I would want the opposite, because I would want all the Jedi to question, this guy's the chosen one? How is he any good? He's just an older, inexperienced dude, because all the younglings are like younger than him, so they're all like laughing at him. Like, you want that chiding, so he has to try harder, and he's got all this remorse underneath his skin that's bubbling up. So he's got to keep it locked in, because again, the Jedi don't treat you or train you to be emotional. You got to keep it under whatever lock they give you.
You know what?
You're onto something. Wouldn't that be resentment?
I kind of agree, but I do also think that it's not. I don't think that Jedi philosophy is about keeping it down, or rather resolving it without it coming up.
Well, if that's the case, we need that scene where he screws up with the philosophy, the spirituality. Like, I want to see that, where you go, oh, there it is. That's where it starts, and this is where he never resolves. He never gets better at that class. The master disregards him, or whatever. Oh, we got a mission to go on, Anakin. Never mind. Forget about that class. Like, I wanted that. That's the building block of what his collapse is going to be. Because right now,
mean like the intro montage in Megamind.
Something. Give me some training that he screws up.
I would say you're onto something there, and I would thus put the second movie, like the first movie, you can like fix what issues it has, but with the second movie, rather go into Anakin growing up, because it's supposed to be the Anakin story. So have it focus more on that, and you start with kid Anakin and you end with juvenile Anakin.
Well, you
have these problems, and around us is this political nonsense that happens that Anakin has no clue about.
Yeah, in terms of conflict, the only real reasonable conflict that I could see is meaningful to the story is in the third episode, where They ask him to do a thing which is against the Jedi Code. You're like, oh, great, there's a political problem. It's a personal issue. It's also about, it just came right after the fact he was not called a master. So like all that stuff happened within like 5 minutes. You're like, wow, that's great. And if that was the premise of, I don't know, episode 2 or even halfway through episode 1, then you could stretch that out. You can go branch it off. You could have all kinds of conflicts from that. And then that could be the basis of this political kid who's super strong, knows all. He's a perfect Jedi. He's amazing. And then you show that you sow the seeds of political issues, of arguments, of nuance. That would be fine. But instead, we got a show for kids. That's what Lucas wanted to do in the first one. He wanted to have a comedic character. He wanted to have sell toys, etc. And the second one was this really weird. I don't know what they were trying to go with.
Yeah.
Thing.
The problem is the part that Anakin is lacking is the philosophical teaching and integration. He doesn't have that for whatever reason. That is why he fails. And the problem I believe there is that Lucas himself didn't know how to write any of that, because his understanding, his philosophical understanding here, and mythological understanding, which is where this philosophy is derived from, it's a good philosophy, he doesn't understand the depth of. He only understands like the cursory surface, and that's why he couldn't write it. Yeah,
I agree. There was a lot of interviews he did in the 90s and, well, obviously after 2000s, where he talks about what his concept of good and evil and the Force was. And it sounds great, but it's all surface level. It's all very like, well, I like mysticism and blah, blah, blah. This reminds me of Buddhism. You're like, okay, great. But
what he should have gotten then is get a couple Buddhist or Taoist monks and tell him.
Exactly. What does it mean?
And they're very open, friendly people.
I know. They'll teach you how to meditate if you ever want to know how to stretch and relax.
Well, that's easy. Sit.
Oh, they're great at that, but they'll show you.
Sit down.
How to
sit. Yeah, sit. Stop doing whatever you're doing. Just sit down. Close your eyes. Deep breathing. Sit upright helps, but generally just sit. If you don't know where to put your hands, fold them in your lap. Don't cross the fingers. Just put your hands together. Doesn't matter. And sit.
Let's get on with the video. We forgot about it.
20 minutes.
Destroy you and make the lives of everyone around you worse. Star Wars also teaches that even if you've made bad choices, or even a lot of bad choices, you can still make the right choice in the end.
Okay, this is the thing I dislike about the message, the moral of episode 6, for example. This is one scene. And just a few months ago, Vader nearly killed Luke because they had a disagreement. So this idea that, if I'm in this particular scenario where my son is about to die, the guy whom I serve is killing him, and I'm just chilling out, sort of watching this, I might go save my son in this scenario. So this whole thing is kind of like another episode 5 twist. It's like, I didn't see that coming. And
but it needed a lot of you could say it needed a lot of build up. Because Vader sees that this kid of mine keeps believing in me no matter what, like a stupid puppy.
Yeah, and Vader,
and then before he was trying to fight him, but Vader wanted Luke to join him. He just wants to be together with Luke, just like he wanted Padme to survive in the prequels. He wants to be with his family, but his kid is just so fucking good on the good side that you can argue Vader then just decides like, fuck this dark side shit, I'm going where my kid is because my kid is not coming out of the good side. Like, he's better than me. Okay. And if anyone's going to kill him, it's going to be me, not that old fart.
Yeah, but who
lied to me anyway.
We learn about that obviously later, but the only thing this comes about as is Luke just saying, I see the good in you. And he's like, nope, you're wrong. I don't believe that. So
but that's because he's denying it in himself.
Yeah, but that's
because he still feels guilt over the whole Padme thing.
There's no build up. There's no possible influence that we can see.
Also, he hates himself.
But we also don't. Yeah, but we also don't really need that there because it's just about the superficial parts are sufficient. We don't need everything spelled out because in the end, it's a story that also sparks our imagination, where we can where it's okay to fill in the blanks for ourselves, and that's what captivates us with this kind of movie, where everything is makes sense enough, it works well enough, it is believable enough, and so the gaps that there are, we can fill out. The problem with the prequels is that while we believe we know this world already, there are a lot of things that don't make sense, no matter how much we try to connect the dots, try to fill in. We need mental gymnastics to fill the gaps. We don't need that in the original trilogy.
Well,
I would say
that's the difference.
I would say the problem with the prequels was that there was the mysticism of the originals, and then the gaps were attempted to be filled with something that did not work completely, that made wrong connections, and then you had to untangle the whole mess. So you had to do twice the job to actually try and understand anything.
Yeah, so the prequels would have worked better if Lucas had given less exposition than he did.
Yes.
And just focused on why he's doing what he's doing, as opposed to, well, you know, I heard you could bring people back to life. And you're like, what? That's stupid. But can you maybe expand? Like, if you want to buy a car, you don't start talking about, well, in order to buy the car, you have to come with me and do all this crazy shit. It's like, wait a second. No, what am I getting out of all of this? Tell me how this works.
And a common fantasy story is, for example, promising magic on that level, and then at the end, the bad guy says, oh, I lied to you. There's no such magic. You fell for it.
Yeah, and Vader just goes along with it. He just like, oh, well, yeah, I pretty much threw my lot in with this guy like a moron. Let's kill some kids. You're like, what? Where? Why? Why would you do that? Anyway.
That's where it becomes
chose to save his son out of love and return to the light in the end. The reason I really
no.
hate the perception that Darth Vader is this hip and cool, all-powerful badass is because it is not the message of Star Wars, and that perception detracts from it.
It's not a message, it's just the vibe he gives off. It's not the, Lord Vader, oh my god, he's so cool. Like, no.
He's
should
badass.
not be like Darth Vader, someone who is more machine than man, who did not care for anyone or anything, and hated himself and everyone, the epitome of misery. You could also...
Is he miserable? Does that ever come out?
He is miserable, but we don't see that.
Then how do you know?
From the movies alone, we don't see him being miserable.
Well, he looks...
We can infer that.
I mean, you take his helmet off, he looks kind of sad, but...
Yeah, well, that's where we don't see his face.
Yeah.
But we see he's
being
a
the
mess.
good-natured person that he was, as soon as he learned who his father was, never gave up hope that his father could be redeemed, that he could change, and it was ultimately proven right in the end. Even Yoda and Obi-Wan had given up on hope for Anakin, and that's another thing. Hope. Having hope is also a central theme of Star Wars. Even at the start of the story, Anakin had hopes as a kid of being a Jedi and freeing his fellow slaves and making the galaxy a better place.
No, only his mother.
By extension, believed that Anakin was the chosen one and would bring balance to the Force. In short, Star Wars is about selflessness versus selfishness, and also optimism versus pessimism, and the story reflects this.
Optimism versus pessimism?
Well, yes, Luke is always optimistic, okay.
Sure.
But I don't see the opposite, really.
If he means...
I would need examples for the pessimism.
Yeah, that's not usually what...
I don't know, it's like 10 minutes inside of the third movie. Like when they see the recordings of people dying. Maybe that's the only part. I cannot really think much about it.
Is it whenever... is it whenever there's a character in literally every single Star Wars story ever says... I have a bad feeling about this.
No, that's just Han.
I don't know.
No, it's not just Han.
It's also Peppy in Star Fox 64.
Well,
it's in every it's in every single Star Wars movie. I'm not counting the Disney ones because I haven't bothered to check every single one. I've only seen the first two.
If you want a general theme from a space opera, you're not going to find it really in Star Wars, aside from good versus evil, which is, you could pick that in any story, really. So, this is not really a good explanation of what is in the story.
I'm going to say...
the moment where Luke insists to Vader that he can be saved, and Vader tells him it's too late. And then, in the end, he tells Luke that he did save him, and to tell his sister that he was right all along. If I had to pick out the two...
Yeah, but why? Like, that's what I mean. There's nothing for us to connect the dots. All it is the supernatural belief, I feel it, Dad, you can do it. And he just does it. There's no build-up. There's just, oh, my son's about to die. Let me stop that. So we make the jump mentally that he must have gone through the process of, I got to save my son. But we never saw it.
Central themes, that would be it. Although I would say the former is the more important message of the two, because typically, selflessness is what inspires hope, and selfishness detracts from it. There are other messages in Star Wars as well, such as how the
I don't know. You can make a lot of arguments for business. People who are selfish start businesses, and that inspires hope for people for a better life and helping the community and all that jazz. Maybe if this was a story about building a business, I guess you could use that argument.
Around us, which plays into the selflessness message, and also the first half of the story, how it teaches that you must always be on the lookout for the return of evil, and to not let your...
Yeah, but they screw that up, so it's not the message.
...your guard down. Otherwise it will slip right under your noses. This is demonstrated in how the Sith were gone for 1,000 years. However, the Sith...
No, that means they were doing their job very well for 1,000 years. They just got complacent, or whatever you want to argue at the last moment.
Which is what happens after 1,000
years later. And because it was so long ago, they became complacent to the return of the Sith.
There we go.
And fully didn't detect the threat and eliminate it until it was far too late.
No, it wasn't too late. Anakin's a retard. Everything about that scene is stupid. It makes
Mace Windu is also a retard, because he just wrote it off as, there might be a Sith. Oh, okay, well, I don't know.
He saw his friends just get butchered like instantly. He's like just standing there like, okay, Mace, what are you doing? You're amazing. You're just like, let these guys get themselves killed. Okay.
However, the Jedi eventually returned to destroy evil. Hence the title, Return of the Jedi. This is because of selfless decisions being made by those like Luke, as well as undying hope that things could change for the better. The rebellion and the people in it did not bow down to the might of the Empire. They rose above it and restored freedom and justice to the galaxy, against the tyranny of the Empire. That's what I would call the overarching message and themes of Star Wars. Selflessness, hope, and awareness. Be selfless instead of selfish.
Yeah, I don't know where he's getting most of this.
Wait, where did this come from? You didn't establish that one.
Is it the first film where they're not aware of evil, or therefore they should be?
Maybe the third one?
Episode 1, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Because the Jedi, because Palpatine was basically operating under the Jedi's noses, and they didn't realise that there weren't a Sith until Darth Maul made his appearance publicly.
Yeah, that should have freaked everyone out. Like, oh my god, we just got a dead Jedi Master. What do we do? I don't know. Yeah, we'll train the kid. Who cares? Go back to normal operations.
Hope and never give it up. Be aware and not ignorant or clueless. An example of this being displayed all in one is perhaps Luke's defining decision in Return of the Jedi. After defeating Darth Vader, the Emperor tells Luke to execute him and take his rightful place at his side. Luke in this moment is selfless, as he spares Vader despite his crimes. He is hopeful, as he did so because...
Well, no, he's kind of dumb. He's throwing away his weapon. He could just say, no, you're kind of scary. I'm going to keep my weapon with me, but I'm not going to hurt my dad. This is the entire. He's trying to make the argument for the entire series with this one scene. It's like you can't really do that.
He believed his father could...
The Emperor's unarmed, and Luke's been wrestling with the temptation to stab the Emperor with his sword for the entire encounter. So by throwing away the weapon, he gets rid of the temptation, and since the Emperor's unarmed, what could it possibly do to him?
And he puts himself on equal ground.
Lightning!
So he, from Luke's perspective, he puts himself on equal ground because he is a fair and just person.
Okay, that's one way of putting it. I'm not going to stop or defend myself.
It's not about strategy here.
Good Lord.
It's about character.
So Luke's a moron, but because he's such a good guy, I'm going to throw this weapon away against this pure evil dude.
No, Smart. This scene isn't about... Can I?
He has no reason to know about the lightning.
Well, that aside, this scene isn't about stats in a combat, in a boss fight.
Yeah, but he's throwing away a weapon that he's like really attached to.
Oh.
It doesn't matter. It's a symbol.
I
Here
get
the
that.
sword is not a sword anymore. Here the sword is just a symbol.
I get that, but it's impractical beyond belief. Especially when these guys could control their things with their minds, so they could just pick it up, no problem.
Smart. This is the end of Planescape Torment, where you talk the big bad boss into killing himself.
Provided you have the actual sign of torment and you then throw it away. You're like, I can kill you, but I'm not going to do that. It's like, what?
Smart, but it's a metaphor.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sure Lucas.
I'm the artist.
Lucas,
I am allowed to not get these things.
Lucas was so intelligent. Lucas was so smart back then. We must symbolically throw away his only means of defense. It's like, okay, it's real deep. It's real deep in the scene.
Be redeemed, and he was aware, knowing what the Emperor was trying to do, and decided he would not fall for it. So he threw his lightsaber away to give the galaxy's most evil man the middle finger. This is
what?
No, that's not it. I'm sorry. You're just as wrong as Smut.
I wanted to give Palpatine the middle fingers. I threw
he's over-interpreting the scene, and you're under-interpreting
I'm not under-interpreting. He's a literal weapon he's throwing away. Oh, God.
This is reinforced when the Emperor just opts to torture him to death, and he pleads for his father to help him, believing in the good inside him. And it works, as Anakin renounces Darth Vader and throws the Emperor off, saving his son, and the rest is history. That is the overarching story of Star Wars. Be selfless, be hopeful, be aware. And I think it's an insightful, meaningful message to teach.
I still don't get the aware part, but okay.
People. I feel that Star Wars in its purest form never got distracted from this message. It was clear just by watching them that they had something to say. That's not how galaxies work,
by the way.
I don't like how...
That shot always confused me, because I even as a kid I knew that's not how galaxies work. Why is there a galaxy outside of the ship?
We decided,
and why is it spinning so fast?
We went to beyond light speed to go several galaxies in diameter away to look at another galaxy for some reason.
And didn't make Anakin a charismatic macho man because it would detract from the message.
Why? What? So we give him no charisma or negative charisma? Is that you put all his points into like force push? Is that what you're trying to tell me here?
It is why I dislike the Clone Wars so much.
What?
Because how it approached the main central character was pretty much a short-term solution to a criticism made incessantly about the prequels, that Anakin wasn't mature and wasn't charismatic.
Okay, wait. So you're saying...
I don't get the charisma part, because man, did the girls fall for him.
So Anakin was a very charismatic character. It's wisdom that he lacked. He lacked personal discipline.
the argument here is he doesn't like the Clone Wars because he thinks the movies are good enough, and that there's all this fleshing out that the argument is if the Clone Wars fleshed out the stuff that wasn't in the film, therefore the Clone Wars are bad. What? That's like a massive.
Well, look, yeah, of course the movies were enough because he is headcanoning them so well that he doesn't need the Clone Wars. So the Clone Wars interfere with his headcanon.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
That he doesn't understand his headcanon.
That's like saying the Batman movies are good enough. You don't need the Batman animated series because they detract from the movies. Like what the.
I mean, to be fair, the animated series of the Batman isn't canon with the movies.
No, but I'm just saying that's like
unlike
look at a serialization of anything, right? You're going to get much more detail. You're going to slow down the pacing. Everything's going to be fleshed out a lot more. And saying, well, the movies weren't perfect, but as soon as you start fleshing stuff out in supplementary material, I mean, it's bad. It's like it's not bad. That's silly.
Extension, I also hate the Clone Wars because the show tends to shrug off evil choices, such as Anakin and Obi-Wan pulling a false surrender so casually, and the show treats it like a joke, even though they violated the oldest wartime sin in the real world.
The oldest
wartime sin?
What is he talking about?
It's a ruse, and they're just
literally
robots.
The original war crime. Also, Ahsoka is American.
What war crime? What is he talking? Let's just rewind this.
It's robots. He means to deceive the enemy by surrendering, but then not actually surrendering.
Oh.
The thing is, these are robots, and on Anakin's side, it's people. Yes, they're clones, but they are people. And you are equating them. I'm sorry, I don't think the rules of war apply in that sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure that the rules of war apply in the intergalactic settings.
Intergalactic, they might, but not in fleshy people against dumb pseudo-AI robots. It's not even AI, it's just pseudo-AI. These are just bots.
Even violated the oldest wartime sin in the real world. False surrendering is literally the original war crime. Also, so
in the novel for the novels for the prequel trilogy, the droideka, destroy droids with the shields.
Mm-hmm.
They had an advanced AI, and the Trade Federation basically dumbed down their AI because they were afraid that the AI would get funny ideas. Whereas in the Clone Wars series, and going into episode 3, there were several standard battle droids which each had their own AIs. They had their own independent thoughts. They weren't your rank and file robots anymore.
Yeah, but the clankers are just bullshit.
Anyway, okay.
Ahsoka is a Mary Sue, and that detracts from the already mitigated revamp of Anakin Skywalker, and has literally no meaningful.
Ahsoka is not a Mary Sue. She goes through an arc throughout all these seasons. Yes, it's drawn out. But man, from season to season, she's getting older.
Yeah.
She's taller. She's more mature every season. She makes mistakes. She gets humbled. She effectively gets that which Smut wants Anakin to go through, or wants to see from happening with Anakin. She is the one who gets the training. And man, Anakin is a worse teacher than Obi-Wan because. Well, okay, Anakin is absent most of the time, which might make him a better teacher than Obi-Wan, because at least he's not messing her up then, and she has to figure out everything by herself. She basically has an absent father problem.
Yeah, the episodes I did see of the Clone Wars, there were a few scenes in the start where she's really cocksure, she's young, She thinks she's good as anyone else, and she gets humbled. So I wouldn't call that. Yeah, I wouldn't call that Mary Sue-ish. Maybe in certain episodes, but no, she's young.
And of course, she's the main character in a kids show, so of course she's not gonna die.
Well, think in terms of
she fails a lot.
Think in terms of who you're comparing Jedi to in that universe, or at least in that series. There's really, really powerful Jedi in the Clone Wars, and she's not one of them. Mm-hmm. So immediately, if you have a comparison between supernatural powers or people, she's on the lowest rung. So I wouldn't call her a Mary Sue at all.
Purpose. And she gets framed for the bombing on the Jedi Temple.
Her failures also reflect on Anakin as a teacher. So
yeah, that would have been a great trilogy or prequel trilogy of Anakin training.
And she takes wisdom from whomever she can get it, including older Jedi Masters that appear like only once. Like at the end, when the Jedi Order effectively betrays her, frames her for something she didn't do. There's this one older guy who's hiding his white lightsaber in his walking cane, his walking stick, and she gave her some wisdom, and basically showed her that it's not the entire order that's shit. It's the few corrupt pieces, but that she can still take wisdom for herself and go her own way. That nothing is in the way of that. It's basically an old Jedi Master telling her, "Dude, the order isn't everything. It's inside. What's inside that counts. That is what makes you a Jedi."
Betrayed by a character who has no reason to betray her and could have framed literally anyone for the attack, and she isn't selfless, hopeful, or aware in this situation. Nor is there emphasis being placed on her being selfish, pessimistic, or clueless, in contrast with the main theme of Star Wars.
Okay, so the guy who had no reason to betray her, I forgot exactly what it was Sarah said yesterday. Well, no, I think it was Saturday actually. But we did a bit of a preview on this, and basically she stumbled on something that the guy was trying to keep hidden, and so it was basically out of a combination of panic and convenience.
Okay, but he said that she's not acting within the main theme of Star Wars, which he hasn't talked about.
The theme of what was it? Selfishness versus the other. That's what he projects onto Ahsoka. That isn't onto the show, which isn't actually there, because that's not what it is about. That's not what Ahsoka is about.
He's equating.
Ahsoka is very altruistic. She's a paragon. She's the paragon Anakin's supposed to be.
He's equating the message or the moral to the theme, which is not. These are two different things, so I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. The only time Ahsoka falls and is actually evil is when she gets possessed by the actual manifestation of the dark side, the sun.
Oh, that happens. That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually cool.
Okay.
Ginga just joined.
Got it. It's just meant to make the Jedi look bad, through a massive mistake and scandal. The characters who actually cast Ahsoka out don't learn anything, nor is there really any emphasis placed on them for their mistake.
But how is that?
Why should they? This is before episode 3.
Well, even
they are still the dumb Jedi Council.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't see problems.
It's the same message as the third film. So what's the problem?
It needs up to the
focuses
first film.
on Anakin and Ahsoka in the aftermath. Anakin did everything right, and Ahsoka did everything right. And it just comes off as backtracking on the message.
Wait. Isn't that what happens in episode 3? The Jedi did pretty much everything right. They did what they always did. They just weren't aware or smart enough or sensitive enough to the Force to figure out what was going on.
Yeah, the Clone Wars needs to play into all of that. Because it tries to actually be canonical between the two movies. flesh them out and give it that which is missing.
Yeah, it's a bit limited in that you can't do much because the outcome has to match.
Yeah.
But
also because you're tied by it's a kids show and you have Jar Jar Binks and
Well,
some other things.
they-
But there are some episodes that have a surprising amount of death.
yeah, they have some bad Jedi in there. There's this one guy who is a turncoat, I think. So yeah, you can do stuff like that and show off some bad Jedi and some good Sith. That's fine.
Especially the Sith episodes,
And the
I
one
would say,
star was always
are the best ones in the entire show. Which all have the show's logo in red. And
Was it Ventress? Who was it? The ones that
yeah, the Ventress and the Darth Maul episodes and such. There were a few entire arcs with them. And the thing is, why they work so well is not just because they're exceptionally written in contrast to the rest of the show, but because these are characters that don't necessarily need to survive. So there are actual stakes in writing here. These characters could fail so hard that you don't see them again. And that gives them a bit more of tension.
Yeah.
While the main characters of the show, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Anakin, of course they're going to make it through. So there's always less stakes with them.
taught. Now, obviously, we all know that George wanted Ahsoka dead, and that probably would have fit much better with the message. But leave it to Dave Filoni to sneak Ahsoka surviving past George's back. The thing is, I don't find much value in the Clone Wars, as it doesn't line up well with the films. It took the easy way out of how it depicted the prequels. And the Clone Wars multimedia project literally proved that it was not impossible to make compelling stories out of the prequel trilogy as they existed and were released. Anakin can be moody and unstable, and that can be brilliant, like the Battle of Jabeim arc. Metachlorians can be a thing, and that can work to great effect, like Darth Plagueis' experiments.
Yeah, but it's stupid. It's
yes.
You can have all kinds of explanations, but you have to do it properly.
You can try to save it; it would still be better without it.
Yeah, this is like saying, well, if we just decrease your cholesterol, you won't have heart problems. It's like, wait a second, is that science? Do we know that for a fact? It's like, no.
Yeah, because now Jedi are just some sort of weird Astartes, and you could technically try to artificially make them, which is the entire plan. And which is the plan of a lot of non-canon games like The Force Unleashed.
Oh, yeah.
We wish they had made that instead.
In fact, you can create new characters to build off the old ones, like Quinlan Vos, among others. In actuality, there was nothing that the prequels broke. The idea that the prequels...
Okay, so midichlorians was a big one. That was taking away the mysticism and all the spirituality of...
Yeah, and it puts it into the material world.
And in a very boring, just, that's how it works sort of way, by just eliminating all the spirituality. So it would have been great if there were like divisions in the Jedi Order where it was like everything's this pure meditation, spirituality group, and there's like this pure science group, and they're always arguing. And, it's just like this, that give me some depth is what I want. I want more than just a bunch of monks who say they're cool. I want arguments. I want theories. I want drama. Give me something to care about. Not, we all just get along and we're great and the Sith are toast. It's like, yep, that's the Jedi. Everything's great. It's like, really? Okay.
with, quote, good storytelling, and that every story after it would be fundamentally broken without a lot of revisions or changes.
It is, because what's happening, it doesn't really matter what the reveals are. Obviously, the bigger the plot holes, or the more plot holes, the worse it's going to get as you progress, because your foundation is so shit. And then you're doing a prequel trilogy, which is the foundation of the thing that came before. And that's crap. That's now crap. So you're stretching thin a philosophy that George Lucas never really clarified or fleshed out to begin with. And he's winging it, if not even bothering with it. So that's why you get all this superficial, melodramatic crap that is all you get out of these sorts of stories. So you get the light. What is Star Wars, essentially? Good versus evil. Okay, great. But what are you watching? You're watching spaceship battles. You're watching lightsaber battles. You're watching force powers, and that's maybe some drama here and there. Characters you like. That's about it. That's it. That's Star Wars. It's nothing special. It's amazing because it's so big as a spectacle, and there's a little bit of substance there. There's a little bit of like family messages and being with your friends and helping out and trying to save the galaxy sort of deal. That's about it. It's very surface level, and it's always been that way. So once they flesh it out with series like the Clone Wars, you get some substance. You're like, oh wow, there's some motivation behind these characters, some backstory. That's nice. It's when you get to the Disney stuff where it breaks down because there's nothing there until you get to Andor, because they're giving you a whole other world to explore with whole kinds of characters. I'm hearing a bunch of chips.
Have you watched it by now?
Or crackers? My dad watches. I pop in sometimes whenever he's watching. No, I haven't seen it.
Have you watched Andor by now?
No, I haven't. I've seen clips. It looks pretty good.
Watch it, and tomorrow the second season's gonna drop, and we're gonna do a watch party, and we all expect it to go really bad because Disney needs to destroy the one good thing about Disney Star Wars.
Oh, it's the second season or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
We expect it to go really, really bad.
Oh, really? The one thing they did right.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they need to destroy it. That's why they didn't advertise Andor in the first place properly, because it was not woke. It had like the on paper it fulfilled all the quotas, but made out of that the most non-woke thing you could. That's the achievement of Andor, of the makers of Andor.
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, and it seems that Disney realized this after the fact, so that's why they tried to bury the show.
Well, that was the idea. I talked about it with the episode 5 or Mass Effect 2. You just want to explore the world. You want to be in the world. Maybe not galaxy-ending scenarios or plots. You just want to let's explore, have some fun characters that they could die. Aside from Andor, because he's in the film, right? So this is all a prequel to the movie. To what was the movie called?
Rogue One.
Yeah, I watched the first 10 minutes of that. I went, not for me.
Andor would be better if Rogue One hadn't been made.
Yes, I hope.
Probably. Yeah.
He is honestly the best character in Rogue One and all.
Oh yeah. Too bad.
No, that's the droid.
Okay, fair enough.
Nah, the droids are funny.
Very wrong. Prequel haters said that without even reading a single side story.
Wait. We do not need to read a side story to criticize the prequels.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to experience a side story to be able to understand the main story.
Exactly. The movies have to stand on their own first.
Which
is
a criticism I will also levy against Kingdom Hearts.
Oh God.
Oh boy. That's a mess.
Don't summon Cyrek about it. We will be here in a
Clone
week.
Wars. Even on the filthy casual range, Battlefront 2 proved them wrong.
What?
As the simple add-on of having Tamara Morrison give a clone's perspective on the Star Wars saga, overlaid with 2005 pre-rendered cutscenes that were literally just gameplay made to look cinematic, well,
that's the way it's done.
The Clone Wars is on the lower mid-tier of Star Wars content at best anyways.
What is with this guy? He just does not like the Clone Wars at all.
Mm-hmm.
He likes Battlefront 2.
Maybe he's intimidated by Ahsoka. I don't know.
Easily beats it in a duel. And Republic has a disadvantage of being a comic book, meaning that there's no sound, plus it's just stationary pictures, and it's shorter than the...
Wait. You're criticizing...
He's criticizing the media. No, he's criticizing the Game Boy for only having 2 buttons.
Hold on. I can confirm that Star Wars Republic is pretty good, but it's not like Clone Wars doesn't have any redeeming qualities either.
Well, if you put that in the version of a comic book, immediately it's no moving pictures, and there's no voice acting, and there's no music, so therefore it sucks. Okay.
He just said that he thinks Republic is better than Clone Wars. Republic being the comic here.
I'm not sure. Maybe he's trying to be sarcastic in that, I am more cultured because I can consume media that doesn't have so many dangling keys as you need to consume, to bear with it.
You'd have to criticize the story as a story and say, okay, what's the bulk here? What's the point? And say, well, regardless of all the music and audio and voice acting, well, it's better because better story. Like, okay, fine, give it to me.
Because we have the magic power to, in our minds, pretend what it would be like if the Clone Wars show was instead made as a comic book and judge the story on that merit still.
Well,
and that still kind of works.
Yeah, well, you could sort of do that by
we literally.
There's sorry, King. Yeah, there's weak issues and there's stronger issues, as is with every series. And Ginga.
I mean, it's like the best you can say is the Clone Wars literally do have comic adaptations, but even then, this whole point is still a bit of a stretch.
Oh yeah, you should check out the comic parts of the Clone Wars then that flesh out the Clone Wars, because actually, he's all for extra content to understand the main thing to make it better. Like,
magic powers. I just use my imagination, bro.
That is a magic power. Not everybody has it.
Clocking in at 83 issues, compared to the Clone Wars' 133 episodes. And it's not like Republic had some bumps on the road itself. Speaking of...
It's not like it didn't have bumps on the road? Okay.
Yeah, it's not like it didn't. It's not like it didn't have issues of its own either. Which, there's things here and there that, but yeah.
Okay.
Like the way the panel on the left is drawn, that looks a bit. Yeah,
that's an example right there. I mean, that comic's good, but still.
One of the central themes of Republic that I picked up is the difference between justice and revenge, and how it often can be confused with one another. 3 examples of this in the series is, firstly, Ki-Adi-Mundi's desire for revenge against a Raider leader.
Really? A Jedi wants to seek revenge? That doesn't sound very Jedi.
I'm pretty sure this was before Ki-Adi was a Jedi.
Oh. All right.
That caused his family so much pain, to the point where his family gives him to the Jedi Order to avoid having to give him up to the Raiders.
Wait a second. So he's not a Jedi. He's never been trained as a Jedi, and they're giving him
pretty old.
Yeah, no, he's. I know where he's going with this. Right. Just let him say it. This was before he was a Jedi.
He asks his master Yoda about how he's supposed to not hate the leader for all that he has done to him, and Yoda tells him to hate the act, but pity the being, as the Raider leader has already lost his battle with the dark side. Mundi ends up trying to confront the Raider leader, only to find out there's been a change of leadership in his absence, and the former leader is now reduced to being a weakling who has to tend to the cattle. Ki-Adi-Mundi realizes that justice has already been done, and that he doesn't need to punish the then Raider leader, because he brought everything on himself, and paid the price for it. The second example comes when Quinlan Vos is deep undercover as one of Count Dooku's dark acolytes. Dooku knows what Vos is up to, and he decides to convert him from a spy to an ally, by taking him to his homeworld, where his aunt rules over Kifu, and upon touching her, Quinlan has the revelation that his aunt murdered his parents when he was a kid, which was since a suppressed memory. Quinlan confronts his aunt on this, only to be met with no remorse. Then Count Dooku comes in, gives him a lightsaber, and tells him to kill her, specifically with the phrase, "Justice demands it." But what Quinlan Vos ended up doing was engaging in revenge, not justice. And Vos ended up falling to the dark side as he acted out of revenge. The third example is after the Battle of Jabim, Anakin Skywalker is sent to another battlefront, and is forced to work with Asherad Head, who is a human-born Tusken Jedi. Anakin obviously struggles to work with him, and he ends up becoming so angry that he lashes out at Head, confessing that he slaughtered a Tusken village on Tatooine, as seen in Attack of the Clones. This ends up getting Het to unmask himself, which reveals that he is a human, and states that Tuskens and humans are incompatible. So his mother must have been a human, as well as his father, who he did know. In the end, however, Hetz does not rat out Anakin to the Jedi over his secret. He does so because he believes that if he did, he would have relieved him of responsibility over what he had done. He then tells Anakin that what he did was not the way of the Jedi, that he acted out of anger and hate, and it was revenge, and then asks him if he had the chance, would he do it again? And Anakin coldly says yes. Star Wars Republic
And that's
still
how you
has
know
the
where
themes of
Anakin
selflessness,
stands.
hope, and awareness in mind, even though Republic is far more pessimistic in its portrayal of the Clone Wars. But I think
It's a war. What you want them to be optimistic soldiers? Clones? Hey,
No, that's what he's giving it as a pro for that story.
You have to be an optimistic soldier. It's called morale.
Okay.
Which is shown in that story as well.
We're gonna win.
Prequel trilogy because it reflects the loss of hope and stuff like Quinlan Voss's obsession with finding the second Sith that caused him to fall to the dark side. When Quinlan Voss is redeemed, he still has to make the right choice. For example, it turns out that his lover, Colleen, was a spy for Count Dooku. And when Dooku orders Voss to execute her, she insists that, yeah, she was Dooku's spy, but then she genuinely fell in love with Voss and pleads for Voss not to kill her. Voss here engages in awareness that Colleen is telling the truth and rejects the dark side, instead giving Dooku the middle finger. I hope you're seeing a pattern here. I'll discuss more of Republic when my review comes out in the year 2037, but the writers did not forget the overarching themes of Star Wars.
Yeah, the comic did very much tap into what made Star Wars what it was, but it's not like Clone Wars never got to that level at all. There were moments that rivaled these examples from the comics.
Yeah, I'm sure individual writers are great in particular stories. There's so many Star Wars stories in novels and novellas. So,
and as you can see from the style of the comics, they are much more gritty, much more mature art style, and thus you can also expect bigger storytelling. The aimed age group of the Clone Wars animated show is what? 6 and up, 12 and up?
Just about the same demographic as the prequels themselves, if not a little older.
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, with some misdirection by Lucas, of course.
Yeah,
with the way that episode 3 went. But that aside, these comics are on a higher level.
Yeah.
There's no question there.
Yeah, and I can confirm that. Yeah, the examples he brought up from the comic are absolutely some of the big highlights from that entire run. Mm-hmm. And my favorite of those three was absolutely the Kiadi Mundi arc, where it's like something that affected him in his childhood that he then took into the point in his life when he was still in training. He confronted that part of his life and realized that he didn't have to do anything else because justice was served.
Yeah, I would have no trouble if I had the money to spare to buy the Clone Wars stories, the good ones of the Clone Wars, when they were made in this comic format, on this quality, in that style, because they and written up to the adult age range.
It's like, and it you can argue that the Quinlan Voss example he brought up here is definitely like a bit of a bit too much of a callback to Return of the Jedi, but honestly, within its own context, it still worked. If you're actually reading it, it's like, and it also taps into the whole thing of George's thing of it's like poetry, it rhymes, and yeah, it rhymed with Return of the Jedi in that sense.
All right.
The Acolyte. In case you didn't realize already, I hate this show, but there's a problem with it far larger than butchering continuity or it being woke. It is not faithful to the meaning of Star Wars. As I discussed in the review, the show tries to make the Sith sympathetic and also tries to portray the Jedi in a poor light. Basically, it has the mentality that the Jedi are not virtuous, selfless heroes who sacrifice everything for the greater good. And
the greater good.
Yeah, but that's what they are showcased.
Where's the choir?
In the prequels, they're dumb. They're complacent. They're not selfish.
I mean, the temple. Well, then again, the temple was built over a Sith temple. That's part of it too.
It's like building on a Lazarus pit.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Well, if you're gonna, these champions of order, you're gonna be constantly vigilant, and they weren't vigilant. So, yeah.
Well, like over 1,000 years, getting complacent is kind of normal. I mean,
no, that's
the Western world got complacent when in the 16th, 17th century they let themselves be fooled by going back from Aristotelian philosophy to Platonian philosophy, and then everything went to garbage.
You could make the argument for aliens like Yoda who live that long, but for average generations, no, it's not.
Well, Yoda's age is just shy of when the last Sith existed.
Yeah, look. The thing with Yoda is rather that because he lived so long, he is the constant element that should be aware of seeing the signs of how they reappear. He is the constant element that can keep us aware because he transcends these generations. Because his lifespan is so long that he can keep the memory alive because it is alive with him. But if we don't have that, which we don't have in real life, it makes it very easy to lose this knowledge and wisdom and awareness as it goes from generation to generation. A civilization breaks down extremely quickly by not passing on its knowledge. You only need one generation that doesn't teach its kids how to bake bread, and suddenly they don't know how to bake bread and feed themselves if they can't call an Uber food thing.
All right, we're at 14 minutes.
That's where we are right now.
And we're more than halfway done. He's getting a bit off the rails, but he's not, he's still on topic, let's just say.
We should the Sith, because the Sith show us what freedom to make our own choices truly is. It's pretty arse backwards. Because Leslie Butthead didn't understand that there's a difference between making the right choice and freedom from consequences. The choices that Quimera's made are wrong. And with Quimera using the excuse that the Jedi say that he can't exist, and that it's oppression, and the show frames it like he has a point, it's a completely disgraceful depiction of the Jedi and the Sith.
Wait a second. Wait, the Jedi do allow people to do whatever they want. We see that in KOTOR. There's all kinds of...
Yeah, but freedom of choice, but not freedom of consequences.
Because that's what justice is, and what karma is, and what the force is.
I'm not sure what the plot of the series was, but I think it was because he's a rogue Jedi or whatever he was. Rogue.
I mean, we're at least in agreement on Acolyte so far.
The thing is with Acolyte is that he says, "Oh, it's not bad because it's woke. It's because of all these things that are there because it's woke."
Because
he doesn't understand the connection
because of his three definitions of what Star Wars should be, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, but he doesn't understand that the woke or the ideology behind the term woke, which is just a way to very quickly say in one word what is going on and why something is going on, is the reason that the Acolyte is written the way it is, and why it subverts and puts upside down the Jedi and the Sith. Because that's what woke does. That's what the red ideology does. Everything upside down.
Dynamic. It's easy for a filthy casual to look at the Sith code and just say that it's about achieving victory and whatnot, and there's nothing wrong with trying to achieve personal success, but if they actually bothered to understand the words instead of
but that's not part of the movies. That's just in KOTOR. That's not unless they took that and made series about that. I don't think so. That'd be hilarious if they did.
It's not in the... You have to... So we can do two things. We can judge the movies by themselves as they are, and we can judge them in the context with other things that may or may not be directly connected to it or be non-canon.
Yeah, but
the expanded universe, which the games fall into, is that's a special realm, because we then it's similar to the Hadith in Islam, where we have to decide which one actually count and which one don't, because there are contradictory elements in it.
Yeah, but they decanonized all of it pretty much until they brought.
Yeah, but that's Disney. Disney's decisions are bullshit anyway. So we can on the other hand, in the end we as the fans decide what is actually canon and what isn't when it's not in the hands of the original author anymore.
Trying to mesh what you like that's supplementary to the thing you're trying to experience is a mess. Like, it's just...
Yeah, but what I assume is okay, hypothetical. Disney goes bankrupt today. Boom. Gone.
Yay!
And all these licenses are now in limbo. They're just nobody can take them. They die with Disney somehow. From this moment on, it's only the fans who decide what is and isn't proper Star Wars, and who makes Star Wars, and that will be the fans. And the fans will decide for the original trilogy, the prequels, and the expanded universe. They will not decide for Disney. They will not decide for Disney Star Wars.
Disney stuff can go to hell except Andor season 1.
Maybe with maybe with the exception of Andor season 1.
Yeah.
For Disney's so for Disney Wars, I think Alan Moore has a lot to answer for.
What?
He's behind a lot of the deconstructions that's been going on.
Really?
Alan Moore?
For years.
Really?
Yeah,
I find that hard to believe.
He popularized the whole deconstruction in superheroes, and it's made its way to Star Wars.
So you mean by way, but you mean downstream? It's his fault.
Yeah, it's all downstream from him. Yeah.
But he's also just one figure that did this. The deconstruction stuff is it goes way back. It goes all the way back to the Frankfurt School.
Yeah, that's
part of critical theory, which is just their rebranding of Marxism, or rather their new iteration on top of Marxism.
Yeah, we could blame Hegel if you want to go that far. I mean, it's...
Well, that goes even further, and Hegel didn't invent Hegelianism, the Hegelian dialectic. The dialectic is even older than Hegel. He just repopularized it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go that far, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of art.
But it's if we just talk about the deconstructionism in the modern sense, that's Frankfurt School stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then spinning it in the most positive way possible, they'd realize that the Sith are very, very wrong. To describe the Sith code, it is all about being as powerful as possible.
Yeah, but it's completely viable.
Giving into your emotions.
When we talk about KOTOR being the better of the storytelling for Star Wars, it's because they go into detail on both the light and the dark, and especially the dark, because that's where the focus is. And for him to say KOTOR is wrong or KOTOR 1 is wrong, it's like, okay, which exactly?
I honestly think he's just showing the footage in the background, just for the sake of it.
Well, he used the code, the Sith code, so I was like, that was purely KOTOR. So it's like, all right, great. What's wrong with it? Tell me wrong. Because there's all kinds of nuance to... They even have gray Jedi or gray Sith in KOTOR. So it's like, okay, which is the problem?
Okay.
Whatever the cost. That means that if something gets in the way of the pursuit of gaining power, you should just bulldoze through it.
I do not remember seeing the Grey Jedi or the Grey Jedi. Well, I mean, there's Jolie Bindo. He's a Grey Jedi, but I do not remember seeing the Grey Jedi code in KOTOR.
No, there's no code yet.
But the thing is, Grey Jedi are not canon from the movie perspective.
Mm.
That's solely an expanded universe thing.
So there is a code, and the code of the Jedi is basically to eliminate emotion. It's basically the extremes of Stoicism, whereas the code of the Sith is basically the extremes of emotion, of being over emotional. So the Grey Jedi way is sort of a middle ground of the two.
In the sense of the Dao that Lucas took it from, is the Sith is pure Yin without the little white dot of Yang in it, and the Jedi is pure Yang without a little dot of Yin in it, which doesn't really work in practice because the Jedi still do Yin associated things like the Jedi mind trick. That's manipulation. That's covert. That would be Yin associated. But Yang without a little dot of Yin is naive. it's not. It's pure reason. It's pure rationality. It's pure logos, but and it is purely altruistic, but it is naive, and that is what the Jedi are. That is the critique. So both of these are not complete, and that's where the middle ground comes in as that's the great virtue of extremes are shit. Let's do the right amount at the right time in the right moment in the right situation. That would be the proper conclusion to derive from Star Wars. That's how you become a whole being. That would be the right answer. But that's the movies are about the extremes and how the extremes clash.
The Sith completely forfeit compassion and love for the goal of ultimate power. Forming relationships gets in the way of one's personal power, so it must be forfeited. Fueling the dark side requires negative, strong emotions, so it must be embraced, no matter the harm it causes to others. That is the ideology of the Sith. That those who have power deserve it by the fact that they have it, and those who are weak do not even deserve to live. It's a might makes right mentality, and real Star Wars will show what happens when you tap into the dark side. It leads to...
So, the emotions, it's not because they're negative emotions, it's because they're strong emotions, and you feel the negative emotions often stronger than you'd feel positive emotions.
Yeah, in Freudian psychology and in yoga, that would be equivalent to the id. The dark side, the Sith, is the ego and the id. And that's where they derive the power, their power from. The id is the manas, where where the term mana is used for in fantasy.
I don't remember all the stories of the extended universe, but I'm quite sure there are some Sith who are peaceful, who just wanted to live a peaceful life. And they sought passion. They used their emotions as fuel. It wasn't always negativity. That was just what ended up happening because you fight a lot. So I don't know where exactly he's pulling the source from.
But isn't that again lots of expanded universe stuff?
Well, he's choosing expanded universe stuff, so it's the same issue. Why is he focusing on this specific example? Because there's other examples that contradict that. I'm just curious why. Is it because it's about the movies and the movies are all just evil and good, or is it doesn't like the nuance? Maybe he's one of those guys who don't believe in Grey Jedi.
Yeah, see, that's my issue with you can't just cherry pick the expanded universe stuff because there are contradictory elements in it.
Yeah.
So you talk about the movies, stick about the movies. But if you want to say this message of Star Wars, you need to define from the beginning, are you just talking about the mainline movies, or are you talking about anything beyond that? And then the question is what? Is it the expanded universe in the books, the games, the comics, the other supplementary materials? Is it the Disney era? Because that thing works completely different to everything else because it's all the subversion inversion. And that's what you have your problems with too. And that's why everybody's confused of what is Star Wars. Because the Disney era, which is the woke stuff, which is the subversive ideology, is all about the destruction of the message. That's why it's confusing. That's why it's badly written, because it's all to undermine it.
Yeah. Then there's the whole message of the kyber crystals and what your color represents, and then that sort of got screwy with Samuel L. Jackson's color, and then they had to invent a whole section of purple lightsabers and what that means. And that involved motion, and we know that I can't remember his character he played, that his power was based off emotion. So there's a lot of nuance there. It can't just
wasn't the purple saber explained to be like evocative of the Jedi Grand Master or something?
I thought they were like duelists. I thought, but they were committed to their values and radiating passion in their strikes. It was all about using emotion and fighting, and that's why he was such a powerful Jedi fighter.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember exact definition, but I mean,
it's not perfect, but it's something.
Yeah,
I feel bad that I never looked into why Mace Windu's lightsaber was purple beyond Samuel L. Jackson wanting a purple lightsaber.
well, that's what I mean. This is what happened, and then they had to like write lore around it to make sense because it's so contradictory. You can't just have random colors, and they have to make all these colors make sense. And then that's when we got KOTOR, and then we got the kyber crystals and how they resonate and all this jazz. So
I'll give credit that they at least tried to explain it.
Yeah. It's like, Lucas did something. What do we do? Oh shit, we got to reinvent the lore to make sense of things, and they did an okay job at least with that.
I was completely fine with the distinction between apprentice and master being green and blue. That was completely fine.
Okay.
And then suddenly, Jedi Guardians, Jedi Concealers, and Sentinels.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's job affiliated.
Yeah, I know. One's a balance of all two. One's a pure fighter. One's a pure force user. Whatever.
Sentinels are sort of stealthy and manipulative. Concealers are stronger in the force than they are physically, and Guardians are more physical than they are.
In the end, it's
magical.
also just a good excuse to have tons of funky colors in video games.
Yeah, I know.
Different colors.
Yay,
Tragedy,
black lightsaber.
destruction, and death. And being selfless is a better option. On the other hand, being a Jedi is all about self-sacrifice, about being selfless.
Wait a second. Why is being Sith bad? You just like it?
You really have to ask that?
Well, no, he's saying that Sith is bad. I'm like, no. From their perspective, that's how they choose to live. It's like, do I want to...
Oh, no, don't give me the subjectivist bullshit of, well, I think I'm a good person, therefore I am a good person. And let's genocide some people who do not think like me, because they're obviously bad people, because they're not like me.
No,
I'm a good person.
No. We have an entire empire, or at least in the, the online MMO, of the Sith. And there's a hidden one as well. There's an even bigger one. So they must have organized themselves in a peaceful manner if they're still around. They haven't killed each other off. So
that's the Sith the species, not the Sith the ideology. They're the true Sith.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, they're not all Force users.
They're also super dark side users, and
You mean the demon-looking guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The red ones, I think they're red.
Code and the actual meaning of its words teaches us to remain level-headed always and to seek wisdom to understand the world and what to do. So the Acolyte spat in the face of this message by trying to promote the idea that the Jedi are a part of the problem, or that being selfless is...
Yeah, but they are part of the problem in the prequels, so...
Of course the Sith would say that!
as it seems, and that it's okay to be a little Sith-like. From a thematic standpoint...
Yes, Mace Windu is a perfect example.
The Acolyte is perhaps one of the worst pieces of Star Wars content. Not only is the message the opposite of what George Lucas tried to teach...
I mean, in the end, you could argue that all these Sith people being really confused and really shit at philosophy kind of supports that the Sith are shit.
Yeah.
or the writing...
Well, you don't want to be a Sith because they are not virtuous, they're just idiots.
Or the writing is so bad, the Sith look better because the Jedi, there's too many on screen, so all the characters are written for.
The thing is, effectively, the Sith, so the Sith, Yin, is emotional immaturity, is all engaging in that, and that is what we, for better or worse reasons, call narcissism. And the writers of the Acolyte are full-blown narcissists. All these SJW writers that you've seen, they do this. That's why they always put self-inserts. That's why they always project themselves, because they don't have the higher functions developed that allow themselves to actually see the world from somebody else's perspective. So it's all just their own very, very limited worldviews put in, their very limited comprehensions of things, and that's what makes these incompetent stories. And that's, you could say, is a group of Sith, a group of incompetent Sith, writing a story that tries to make the Sith look good, and they fail at that because they're Sith. They're not Palpatine level Sith. They're like the crappy apprentices that get wasted as pawns at the front line. They're the ones who write this. That's the big joke.
Well, you would need a writer like Avalon to do something of comparable quality to look at the Sith and say, okay, how do we write these guys in some believable capacity that they would exist and not kill each other off?
I mean, look, it's as if you have if George Soros or Klaus Schwab would write it, which is the competent Sith at the top, the Palpatine, or whether Justin Trudeau would write it, who's an incompetent puppet frontline Sith who you waste as cannon fodder. You see the difference?
Oh God, yeah. Well, I'm very aware this year of what's going on. So
did Chris Avalon ever do anything for Star Wars?
Oh yeah, KOTOR 2. Oh yeah,
Obsidian, KOTOR 2.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. He also did Fallen Order.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, no wonder there weren't much complaints about that story.
Well, I think he was not moonlighting, but he was still within the dregs of the lawsuit that he finally cleared up, I think. So he was working on that during that time. So I don't know if he was very public about what he was doing. So plus you don't want to tell your people you're suing or being sued by how much money you have. So you can't be announcing all this new money coming in. Chris Avalon played KOTOR 1 and he threw the control on the ground. He was so impressed by it, he had to go get the rights or at least somehow acquire the rights to make the second game. So yeah, he was really into it.
I mean, was the story of KOTOR 2 any good though?
Oh God, yeah. It is the best out of.
No, I mean, I just don't know. I just didn't know. Okay.
Okay. If you like,
dude,
if you like Star Wars,
you've had KOTOR 2 how many years and have not played it?
That's beside the point.
Anyway, it is the best out of all the Star Wars.
Apathy is death.
Okay, stop it. Just saying. If you want to read it or play or learn about Star Wars lore, KOTOR 2 is the best route. Probably the best storytelling. I wouldn't say the best gameplay, but there's lots of.
That's kind of what mods are for.
Oh, I never played it with mods, so I can't say.
So the gameplay of KOTOR 2 is actually an improvement of KOTOR 1. The problem is, it's an unfinished game.
Sure.
Isn't that what mods are for? Isn't that also what mods are for?
There is a patch that restores some of the last half hour, 40 minutes of the game. But it's definitely the one if you want to get, because this is where we get all the subversion of Star Wars. This is where we get all the philosophy that Star Wars,
the good subversion.
Well, what Star Wars was lacking. We need to ask why the Jedi, why the Sith. We have to generally get into that answer, that question.
I mean, look no further than the twist at the end of KOTOR 1.
I wouldn't say that is without depth, but that's just a twist in a story.
I will admit that there's better than that, but that was still decent.
Well,
that's still a decent example.
KOTOR is the setup for, okay, what if there is a gray Jedi? What does he look like? Or a gray Sith? What does he do? What does that involve? What does it mean to be a Jedi and to actually fight wars? And why isn't that happening as much? And then KOTOR 2 goes into that war and goes, okay, this is what really happened and why Revan is a thing and why the Mandalorians are a thing. And it really connects it all well together. And it really goes into the Sith and what they are, which is what you needed ever since the beginning. Because in the beginning, all it was the white knight and the black knight in space. And you're like, that's fine. But now we have like a dozen stories or 3 stories in series and whatever.
And then there's the Acolyte, which took a gigantic shit on all of it.
I don't know what the Acolyte is, but it's such a, like when you have KOTOR as the base and then you get KOTOR 2 and you're like, oh, this is the standard. This is what a good writer does with the lore. They fill in the blanks. They connect the dots. Now that you have that framework, just use it. Just take that template and just go everywhere with it. And they didn't bother to read that.
You honestly expect Disney to do that?
I expect people who own the frickin' franchise to know the lore. Yeah.
Too late to say that.
Yeah.
They
But to
don't
go
care
back
about
to-
knowing the law. They only know the law in so far as to do the opposite of what it is. That's all they want to know. What is it, so that I can do the opposite out of it.
But not before ripping it off of the EU first.
Well, I don't even know if they're going to do anything with KOTOR. That was a thing that Kennedy
Isn't
said.
the remake still happening?
Well, she said it years ago, but we never saw any examples.
Don't give him ideas.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but to go back to the videos, like anyone that knows better knows why the path of the Sith is the wrong way to go, and that's
Hopefully-
what Acolyte gets entirely wrong.
Yeah. Hopefully Disney is bankrupt by then.
All right.
Then Tencent's going to buy it. It's going to
Let's-
get even worse.
Anyway,
Keep on going.
But also the message that the Acolyte promotes is not insightful or useful. Teaching people to be like the Sith is an idiotic and flat-out deluded thing to teach people. The show does a
Correct.
terrible job at promoting all this on its own terms anyways. And you can easily tell that it's muddling the message because it can't even stay consistent with itself. The show, despite asking you to sympathize with the Sith, mostly relies on what Quamir says about how the Jedi tried their hardest to make sure he doesn't exist. That's it. And it's like, oh boo-hoo. The Jedi do everything to wipe you out because you are a Sith. And it's really pathetic. It's almost like Butthead wanted to present the Sith as sympathetic, but also knew that she couldn't have Quamir do anything kind or charitable, something that would actually prove the point that the Sith aren't so bad. It's really weird to watch.
Do it!
And the same thing applies to the Jedi. Literally the whole idea that the Jedi are problematic comes from a misunderstanding that the entire story is built upon. That Sol and friends made a mistake that led to disastrous consequences, although it was still a mistake, and Sol did everything to try and make up for it. Everything, except explaining himself when he's being force choked. Yeah, this story is really stupid. I already criticized it for that. The whole trope where one character reveals another character has been lying or hiding something to another character is really misplaced with who does what. The show really...
That's female writing, because that's all standard female writing is. There are competent female writers, but most are not. And when they write like this, because that's all it's intrigue, somebody lied, it's a surprise, confused thing, I was the thing all along. It's soap opera. Bad soap opera. It's not good space opera, it's just soap opera.
Yep.
Plot twist.
That's all.
Show really can't even commit to its own message, and that's part of why it's a really weak story.
What the hell?
'Cause you can
That's so stupid.
What was
That is
happening?
Such a stupid scene. Oh, my crystal is bleeding. That's bleeding, now it's red. That's not how the process is done anyway. That's just stupid female emotional rewriting of something that they don't understand or don't care to understand again. How often has the red kyber crystal thing been rewritten now?
It's like there's no way you can convert the kyber crystal to red while it's in use.
And just like by being a little bit emotional. No. The thing where the whole idea of making the crystal bleed, that's a synthetic process where that involves strong Sith meditation, if you will. That's not just done by just standing there and being a bit female. And I prefer the whole thing where the red crystals are purely synthetic in the first place.
I was just about to say that.
It's like, could you imagine if in the final battle of episode 3, like Anakin suddenly had the red saber because he
gets a bit angry.
Yeah, exactly. Could you imagine if that had happened at the end of episode 3 if he suddenly had the red saber for that by that same logic in Acolyte?
Okay,
if it works that way, wouldn't it have turned red during episode 2 when they were murdering those?
In the cave, in episode 5. 5.
With Luke, yes.
Yeah, in the cave. Yeah, and the thing is, so these women just turned lightsabers into mood rings.
Yeah.
And Luke's green lightsaber in Episode 6, it was a synthetic crystal. It was originally red.
Now I'm just
yes,
waiting.
it was originally red, but
Politics.
Luke didn't want to have a red crystal.
Yeah.
So he effectively bled the crystal until it turned green.
Yeah, this isn't like the video game.
This is the first time I'm hearing that you can turn a red crystal back into another color.
Oh god.
I mean,
where'd that come from?
Let's just not explore this.
I mean, doesn't the white saber come from purifying a red crystal?
Well,
I have no clue about white sabers. This is all stupid. Stop stupid stuff.
I know that was at least a thing before Disney.
Yeah, there is a quest line in KOTOR, but those are real crystals. You have to get your own kyber.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
Just let them be super rare and give them to the supermasters.
Okay.
You can tell Head doesn't even really believe in what she was writing that much. She basically did what she did to stand out from all the other Star Wars stories. Disney Plus shows have this weird feeling of being both uninspired and doing things to shock people with varying degrees of effectiveness at the same time. So basically, to put it short, the Acolyte doesn't have a huge emphasis on its message, and therefore, its themes are incredibly weak because they...
No, that doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, well, what is its message? Because it's not necessarily the same message as the other Star Wars content that you have, because it's a woke written thing written by narcissistic feminist women.
Well, what he described are two different things, so I don't know what he's trying to get at.
Yeah.
Don't ring true. If there was ever a Star Wars story that was completely insincere, it was The Acolyte. And it's why I hate it so much. Because you can feel that it wasn't made out of love for Star Wars in any regard. It's just Butthead's whorehouse of destructive story decisions that completely screws over the Phantom Menace onwards.
Well, yeah.
Oh, he's correct, because he's describing everything that woke writing does.
Yeah, but
he just hasn't made the connection that is what it is.
But
he understands surface level. He understands what he sees, but he doesn't understand where it comes from on a deeper level.
He said Butthouse's whorehouse of destruction or something like that.
That's Disney Star Wars in a nutshell.
Yeah, but let him be flowery. It's fine.
Oh god,
it's fine.
He's at least correct.
Yeah, he's trying.
People already don't understand the message of Star Wars. What they need the least is a story that spews the opposite message. It's only going to make things more confusing, since The Acolyte is officially made Star Wars content. So with that being said, I think I've made my point extremely clear.
Yeah, and so was the Christmas special. Yet we don't treat it as canon.
Well, that's beside the point, but...
This will all be decanonized.
Okay.
I promise
you.
Star Wars is not a hard story to understand what it's trying to teach you. The Empire are not the good guys, and they're inspired by fascist and authoritarian regimes such as the Nazis. I used to be in the pitfall of trying to...
Is that his accent, or is he being weird?
No, that's YouTube.
No.
That's censorship board dodging.
All right,
that's
fine.
I said.
Oh, we got what he's saying though.
Well, his
I
accent
say for that reason.
is a bit weird to begin with. So.
Well, yeah.
But I grew up and realized that George Lucas clearly did not want people to think the Empire is good, or even comparable to any reasonable government in the real world. The Empire is supposed to be like North Korea with unfair laws, oppression, lack of basic rights.
Oh, you mean communism?
Yeah.
Oh, so he understands that communism and fascism is the same thing. I like this guy.
Yeah.
He totally redeemed. Redeem.
He's describing Lucas.
A rough start with bashing Clone Wars TV show, but after that, he's on point.
Yeah. Redeem.
But yes, that is the reason why Lucas made it so very blindingly obvious what the Empire is supposed to represent, and yet we still have people spinning that around because they're idiots.
No, they're not idiots. They're malicious. And then, of course, you have idiots who don't understand more. But the malicious people try to split the hairs between the Nazis and the communists so much because they want to keep doing this stuff, and therefore they have to label, because history forces them to label the Nazis as bad, so that they can say, but we are not like them. We are the communists. We are the good guys. Trust us.
Yes.
We are for human rights, despite our ideology being against every single article of the Human Rights Charter in practice.
Anyway.
Rights and speech whatsoever. The rebellion is meant to represent people being pushed over the edge by the Empire's tyranny and rising up against it. And not Osama bin Laden deciding to hijack 4 planes and killing innocent people to get back at the United States. The rebels are freedom fighters, not
Yeah, but look, can you imagine with that level of security that a bunch of X-Wings could actually bring down the Death Star? That thing collapsed on itself. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
X-Wings don't melt steel beams.
Okay.
Fair enough.
words. Now, I think it's fine that Disney canon has this element where some rebels are extremists, as long as the whole theme of selflessness, hope, and awareness is intact. Like, is Saw Gerrera a selfless resistance fighter who works for more than just toppling the regime? How much hope does he have that he can actually defeat the Empire? Is he aware of the severity of the choices he makes in the name of fighting the Empire? I haven't really seen any...
It's a question of principle. If you don't keep going, there's not going to be a chance to achieve the goal that's long beyond the horizon anyway. Because you have to put one step in front of the other, otherwise you're not going to get closer. That's the thing. You don't know whether you can make it, but you have to keep going.
Why does he need
the fanatics understand that.
Yeah, but why does he need a sense of scale? Why can't he just do what he can in this environment? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's how every rebellion starts.
Why does he want this character to have like a sense of scale? Like he should be doing other things. It's like, why?
Here he's losing it again, and think he is not able to put himself into the shoes of that character to see things from that perspective. He makes the same mistake that the female writers, the narcissistic writers of the Acolyte do.
Well, if the argument
and because it's a difference in a role-playing game between player knowledge and character knowledge.
If the argument is his character is explaining his sense of behavior and why he is where he is and what he's doing, that's great. That's good. That's normal. But if the question becomes, well, he's been doing this for 40 years, he should understand that there's more than one planet and the Empire is gigantic and you can't take it all down and you need more help. And it's like, okay, maybe there's some argument to be said of logistics and connecting.
Of course you need more help.
Yeah. So,
but you can only act where you are with what you have.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, what is he trying to get at? Is this a problem with the character? Is it a problem with the plot? Is it a problem with the setting?
I think with Saw in particular, he's reading a bit too much into Saw Gerrera.
And just to explain this one situation here. You're this one guy who has this little operation. You're trying to amass equipment and people to your cause as much as you can, but it also must remain small, or you're gonna get detected. So you have to be super careful. And so the stuff that you have is actually not very much. So you can't really do any big operations with it, because you're just going to waste it all in one go. So if you ever do one big operation, and Rogue One basically calls for, hey, let's do the big operation, that's an all or nothing thing. Where you're going to think, is this the one big thing? Otherwise, you continue to be cautious and just do your little mosquito bites. That's the thing. And he does... Surprisingly enough, this guy who complains about strategy of some characters himself doesn't understand strategy.
Exploration of these questions, because Star Wars Rebels was dog shit, but the point is, I think every Star Wars story should be aware of these themes. But the thing is, Disney doesn't really see Star Wars as an important piece of fiction that tried to teach us something. They just see it as a cash cow.
To him,
it's why a lot of Disney's Star Wars products are a complete disgrace, as they either ignore, misunderstand, or flat out reject the message of Star Wars in favor for the shitty new. I want to emphasize that I don't hate Disney Star Wars because it's the hip and cool bandwagon, or because I think it's woke. I hate it because they have completely forsaken the series' identity. Now,
That's the point of woke.
I was just about to say, yeah.
look, every good Star Wars story reflects the message, such as the Battlefront 2 campaign. But the reason why is because it's obviously meant to give an Imperial spin on things. But someone on their own should not magically change their mind about the Empire. Think about how the 501st narrator talks about the events of the films. He suggests that the 501st had doubts that the Jedi were really traitors, but they said nothing. They followed their orders regardless. The narrator also talks about how many fellow soldiers he knew that died when the Death Star was destroyed. But then he neglects to mention the obvious motive for destroying the Death Star, that the Death Star would be used to destroy planets and kill countless people, so the
Well, not really to destroy them. Andor was just Alderaan. Alderaan was just that's an example. To have everybody know it's the nuke, it's the big nuke, it's Hiroshima. So that you know, we can actually do this and we're willing to do this. We're willing to push the button. After that one, you don't need to blow up another planet. You just need to fly a Death Star there and say, now do as we say. That's enough. You never need to push the button again. That's the point of the Death Star.
And if it weren't for that one space wizard and his lucky shots,
that melted the steel beams.
His one in a trillion shot.
Yeah, but that's why we built a bigger one.
The destruction of the Death Star was necessary, even if it killed personnel that had nothing to do with firing the super laser. They were soldiers and military personnel, so them being killed wasn't a war crime. The 501st...
Okay.
Yeah. Well, now we can... Because on the other hand, we can now argue, was it evil to sink the Bismarck? Because there was a lot of really good personnel on that ship.
Well, the same argument is made about Alderaan. It wasn't a war crime. They were an enemy. You blew up a planet. They just killed all your enemies. There you go.
Yeah, but it was still a travesty, though.
Yeah, but it's not all military personnel. While on the Death Star, it's all military personnel. As on the Bismarck.
Yeah, well, the point that
the Bismarck was basically the Death Star. It just was a very incompetent Death Star.
The point that the 501st Journal gets across in that campaign is the fact that the clones that managed to survive into the Age of the Empire were still blinded by the conditioning from the Clone Wars.
The whole thing
was the brain chip thing there. Yeah.
No, it was not. And it was not, and I'm grateful it wasn't by the time the story was made.
First narrator doesn't even ever look at things from the Rebels' perspective. He doesn't mention the destruction of Alderaan.
Maybe because he's a mook, or he's a guy who's part of this part.
Well, no, the 501st are the 501st are some in this version of the story. The 501st are some of the highest-ranking soldiers in the Imperial Army.
Why would he want the perspective of or how would he have the perspective of the rebels? Like, what is this guy arguing exactly?
He wants the clone trooper have player knowledge,
or
because he has player knowledge,
or knowledge of the opponents he's fighting. Like, what exactly does he need?
He wants the clone trooper to be a philosopher who takes every side into account. Even though that if assuming he would write that, assuming he could write that and he did write that. Now consider his superior officer would find his diary and read it and think like, oh, this trooper has sympathies for the enemy.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't need to read the diary. His superior is Darth Vader.
Well, a clone.
Yeah, maybe he'll want to censor himself in his own diary.
I don't think they would have created a compassionate clone trooper. I don't think that would have worked out very well for the...
but that's what he wants.
I don't think
they did feel compassion for Ayla Secura, for example. They knew that she was going to be executed, and they were ashamed when she was praising them.
I do know there was some
They really liked her.
there were some Clone Wars stories where there were defects, but nothing that would cause like a genetic mutation or some randomized sequence to cause them to be, oh, let's be sympathetic and nice and non-warlike. It's like, what? No, that would never have happened.
Yeah, that was the really broken ones. But the clones went inhuman, but they were conditioned into being war machines from birth.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they would be so that they would be perfect soldiers. That's the point.
You could make the argument they might have conditioned one to be a very good strategist, and they would get into the minds of the enemy, and they would have to talk about that.
Well, that's the anomalies that stand out.
That's for commandos. That's for commandos. Heard of Republic Commando?
Yeah,
yeah.
He's speculating on this. He wants this perspective of the good guys.
No, hold on. I don't think that's what I did not hear that. Hold on. I did rewind a little bit. I want the context here.
Sure.
So them being killed wasn't a war crime. The 501st narrator doesn't even ever look at things from the rebels' perspective. He doesn't mention the destruction of Alderaan.
Yeah.
And in fact, he spoke of Alderaan quite poorly, stating that they were pests who were causing the Empire problems.
So he didn't mention Alderaan, but he spoke of Alderaan poorly.
Yeah, whatever.
He spoke of the rebels in general poorly.
Well,
I do remember the campaign.
Yeah, but he's saying that why aren't the rebel perspective being? It's like, why would there be?
I don't think that's what he's saying, though.
That's what he's saying.
Speaking of the rebels poorly is also assuming a perspective.
No, he's just saying how that literally does happen in the campaign. He's just describing the events of the campaign, of the narrations
from the trooper.
From the game, yeah, because what he's showing is from the campaign.
Yeah, but that's the point. That the narrator it's supposed to be from the perspective of the trooper.
Yeah, and he is saying he wants the rebellion one from the trooper. And you're like, why?
Yeah, I mean, there's a example of this that I like, even though it's very because it's very ham-fisted, is the intro to the MMORPG. I don't know if it's still running, Ion, where you have the angel people and the demon people, and they originally come from the same origin. And depending on which side you choose, you get an intro that tells the story. And it's almost the same thing, except that the other side is labeled as the evil guys, and you're also labeled as the good guys. And that's basically all there is. But they have the same origin mythos. And he doesn't get that the trooper conditioned into being where he is, of course, sees his side as positive and his enemies as not so good. That it doesn't matter, that it's not about objective truth, that this is a subjective point of view. The trooper doesn't need to see things from the perspective of his enemies. A high-ranking general might, because that is what allows him better strategy. But that also doesn't mean that he needs to align with the cause of the enemy.
I'm just curious why this guy wants that narration.
I don't think he does. He's just describing it.
He does say that. Look, we'll rewind one more time.
Because he wants everything spelled out for himself.
Super laser. They were soldiers and military personnel. So them being killed wasn't a war crime. The 501st narrator doesn't even ever look at things from the rebels' perspective.
There you go. He doesn't even look at the other perspective. And I'm
just
like, why? Why would he ever do that? How would he ever do that? What relevance is that to the narrative from the perspective of the trooper or the 501st?
I don't give a shit about the perspective of the sand people if they steal my mother and torture her to death.
Yeah, it's like, why do we need to know this other side? Just because you like them? Like, what's the point? He's choosing the rebels as favorites for whatever reason. Is it a different game? Is it a different perspective? I don't know. What he wants to know is like, well, there's no reason to do that. The narrative is not about that. There's no point. Unless there's some specific back and forth where we see the perspective of another character who is a rebel and they jump to the other guy. I don't know, maybe they have camera footage. Maybe they got notes. Maybe they got some intel. But without context, he's just saying, well, he never used that perspective. It's like, well, why would they?
He doesn't mention the destruction of Alderaan, and in fact, he spoke of Alderaan quite poorly, stating that they were pests who were causing the Empire problems. It's meant to be a really fascist way of thinking, but also give you a window into how the Empire thought of themselves, not mentioning Imperial atrocities and trying to spin the rebel uprising in the worst way possible, such as...
I'm not seeing the problem.
Because it's the fascist perspective, just as the communist perspective, which is a fascist perspective, is a by any means necessary perspective. Everything we do is good because we do it to advance our cause, and everything that is in the way of it is bad because our cause is good. That's all it is.
Even if it wasn't whatever political view, it doesn't matter. He is of a certain disposition, and he's going to give that opinion from that perspective. That's expected. I would not expect him to start talking about religion or cooking or anything random. It would make no sense. So why?
I wouldn't expect a run-of-the-mill character in the Empire, which is 99% of them, that actually are in the system and indoctrinated into the system, to think anything else but we are good, we are justified. I don't need to consider the perspective of others because they are inferior.
Well,
therefore I get to slaughter them. They're in the way. They are nuisances.
Within the context of being a soldier, he's going to give a soldier's view of what the fighting is about, and that's the whole point. That's what the story is about.
Yeah,
so why would
the whole thing about a soldier in the field is that he's best not to know what the designated enemy's culture and thoughts are, because he's supposed to kill them, and knowing these things is in the way of that. That's why the soldiers are given only the instructions they need.
All right, we got less than 2 minutes left.
Otherwise, they start fraternizing with the enemy.
Otherwise, they'll start asking inconvenient questions such as, Hans, are we the baddies?
Anyway.
And the rebels just gunned him down, and now I'm angry. The 501st narrator clearly didn't question any of his orders and carried them out because he was conditioned to. So while the game doesn't promote the message of Star Wars, it's still useful in the story of Star Wars to contextualize how the nameless bad guys thought about all this. One should easily notice the way the narrator...
He didn't complain. He was just...
It sounds like he complains. Maybe it's from his...
He actually wasn't.
Maybe it's because of the way he talks, because it sounds also disdainful and
he clearly wanted a different story. Okay, he meant that very clearly.
He actually argued against that.
No, he didn't. I can rewind it a third time, but he said exactly. Where's the perspective of the rebels? Blah blah blah. He wants to know what happened to the rebels from the 501st.
That doesn't.
Okay, he needs to work on his emotional, because of course we cut up so much that we lose track. But he needs to work on using other emotions when he talks and not say everything in this. I actually hate everything voice. That everything is shit, and therefore it gives the impression that he's criticizing something when he isn't.
And he wasn't. It really just was the way he was talking.
Yeah, that implies intent. You could hear it from someone's voice. So I don't care if
don't become an actor.
Or at least that.
Don't interpret people's soundings. Yeah, how does people get angry for no reason? Oh, he's just contextualizing the frame.
Like, I can get from it. It's like he was arguing against anyone that wanted more out of it. I didn't get that he wanted more out of it. It literally was just the way he was saying it.
Okay.
All right, we got 1 minute left.
And props up the Empire compared to what we see in the films.
See, again, he
not yet, but the context.
Because he was conditioned to. So while the game doesn't promote the message of Star Wars, it's still using...
You see, he's using his idea that all Star Wars is bad unless it has his three
don't cut him off.
qualities.
Useful in the story of Star Wars to contextualize how the nameless bad guys thought about all this. one should easily notice the way the narrator spins the rebels and props up the Empire compared to what we see in the films.
Exactly.
One should easily notice the way the narrator spins the rebels and props up the Empire compared to what we see in the films. So with that being said... So,
again, prequel's good, everything else bad, because he doesn't have those three magical qualities that he wants in Star Wars.
What I took from it is that it's like, while it doesn't have the message, it still shows what happens when it shows you to not think how do I put it? Damn.
Take a breath.
Because the campaign clearly shows that the Empire's still in the wrong if you pick up on all the details. That's what he's saying.
He does not have his three criteria for what makes Star Wars, and because it doesn't, it's bad. And then he's trying to find the clues for making it bad. And one of the things he picked up on was the narration of the 501st guy, who's a baddie, who's done the bad things, but why doesn't he have the perspective of the rebels? It's like he's not supposed to have the perspective of the rebels. There's no way he can have the perspective of the rebels, and therefore it's bad.
He never said Battlefront 2 was bad, though.
I can't remember. Halfway through, he might have said something that was good or bad. I can't remember what his perspective of Battlefront was.
He was singing the praises of the story.
Either way, it does not have one of the three or the three qualities he's expecting. Therefore, it's bad. That's what he's getting at. Out of all these, that's why he doesn't like the Clone Wars. It doesn't have first off, he thinks it's flawed because that implies the prequels are flawed, which they aren't, because that's what Star Wars is, even though they flesh out the stuff that people were asking for. Then he goes into the Clone Wars games. I can't remember if he dislikes or likes them. I'm assuming he dislikes them because of the narration he just mentioned. And now he's going back into, if you can just understand the perspective of the rebels, then it should be good, and therefore the three elements of Star Wars could come out from that. I don't know. It's very subjective what he's trying to say of why he likes the prequels in this made-up criteria that he either defined or he just pulled out of something. I don't know. And he's mixing up his terms with themes and message and morals. And maybe there's a moral in these games. I don't know. There could be. It's very odd. He's just disconnecting things and trying to draw connections that aren't really there with these terms that I don't believe in. So, anyway, Ahsoka's bad because he said so.
Well, that he is wrong.
The overarching message of Star Wars and how all Star Wars media should follow its example for that reason. And if any content wants to question that message, it better have some damn good arguments that give insight, and Disney's Star Wars, I'm sorry to say, doesn't do that. I'm JJ Plagiarisms, and until next time, what are stories about mystery boxes?
What?
What?
J.J. Abrams.
That's what Abrams or what?
Yeah, it's just it's a jab. It was a jab at Abrams. It's like, what are stories with mystery boxes?
Oh.
That was funny.
Yeah,
that was out of nowhere.
It's the
channel is called cut off that gave me whiplash.
Yeah, that I'll grant that.
I mean, it's like when Geeks and Gamers does thank you very much, because he's referencing what's her face, Brie Larson.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Only just a couple things in stream memes, and that's about it.
Oh, okay. Stream memes it is.
Look, I have a page here from Star Wars Republic.
Also, we've got the Jedi code, the Grey Jedi code, and the Sith code in our chat.
In the DM chat. Yeah, for anyone who wants to look at it. In fact, let me just move that over to stream memes.
All right. Here we go. 21st. I'm not reading comic book panel. Why is this up here, guys? What is this?
Oh god, that green lightsaber does not look safe to handle. That triple thing there. Imagine that just slipping a little bit.
All right, this is Darth Vader with no lower body. I'm assuming.
That's Grievous after the destruction of his shuttle.
Oh, okay.
Like the event that would lead into him being transformed into a cyborg.
All right, makes more sense.
That's why he's still so big.
And then Force code, the Force user codes, the Jedi code, Grey code, and Sith code.
I've never seen the Grey Code before. Where'd that come from?
Well, that's the Grey Jedi code.
Yeah, but who wrote it? Where can I find it?
I
know the Sith
think
code.
it's in
This sounds like Harper shit from Baldur's Gate 2.
Oh yeah. I will do what I must to keep the balance. The balance is what.
Yeah, that's Harper shit.
Yeah.
It's like a neutrality fanatic. Let's kill the virtuous king because there's too much virtue in the world.
There is passion yet emotion. What do you think a passion is? What the hell? Serenity yet peace. What? Serenity is peace. What are you talking about? Chaos yet order. What? Those are opposites.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, the chaos yet order fits better than the other two.
Okay. I am the wielder of flame. Protector of balance? The what? What?
I am a wielder of secret.
I'm sorry, this is just.
I am a servant of a secret fire.
That is just
wielder of the flame armor.
That's just random deranged stuff.
I am the wielder of the torch, lighting the way. Okay, that's something. I am the keeper of the flame, soldier of what? This is weird. Anyway, that's
this is pseudo prose. Was this written by a woman?
Child.
I have no idea.
I do prefer the Sith code because you can really go ham on it. Peace is a lie. There is only passion.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
Through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. And the Force shall set me free.
Yeah, I know. It's almost as bad as Yoda going about fear is the path to anger, and anger leads to this, and suffering. Like, what the?
Yeah, that stuff doesn't really work. But the Sith code at least is a path that leads to everybody wants to be at the very top, and that's why they all keep infighting all the time, because there can only be one at the top, and only the one at the top is truly free. That's the idea.
Okay, so I double checked. Yeah, I found the actual Grey code.
Oh, really?
I put it right after. That's here. Yeah, I posted the actual Grey code.
Okay, where's it from?
There we go.
Yeah, but where? Yeah, who wrote it?
That looks better. Just from the size of it.
Flowing through all, there is balance. There is no peace without a passion to create. There is no passion without peace to guide. Knowledge fades without the strength to act. Power blinds without the serenity to see. There is freedom in life. There is purpose in death. The Force is all things, and I am the Force.
Okay. It's also a bit random, just like the Yoda thing, but it makes more sense than whatever this other shit was.
Yeah.
Where's this from?
I am double checking that.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
You just took it from somewhere.
Anyway, guys, that was a very different take on why someone dislikes Disney Star Wars and this guy loves the prequels. That was weird. That was very strange. The prequels are not great writing. I'm sorry to say. They are not good. They're
a good idea executed.
It
not
is
so competently.
A ramshackle series of ideas that individually they make sense, but together they're just a mess.
I understand the red thread of Lucas wanting to turn Anakin's life story into his Citizen Kane, but it doesn't work. It needs refinement. It needs a year in the oven with friends to bounce back off.
It's like if they cut back on about 60 to 70% of their ideas and just fleshed out the 30% that actually works. You can make a movie out of that 10% each, I'd say. And I really think that the substance of the prequels is all in that not the last scene, the last half of episode 3, where they ask Anakin to go do the spying, and he's like, wait a second, that's not why I'm here. That's against the code. That was like the only thing I could latch on to and say, yeah, that's a good form of conflict that makes sense. That just came after the fact that he was not made a master, and everything was just sort of okay. That's good. We can work with that, but that should have been the premise of like the second film or something like that. Anyway.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Smart. Did we watch the Vader fan film together?
We probably did. We watched a few of them.
Did we? Yeah. Did we show that to you?
Yeah, no, you talked about it.
Yeah, because that's the kind of writing and also the show don't tell part that the prequels needed.
There was one we watched. I don't know if we watched it together. I know I watched it by myself. It was a little too much talking, a little too much, between the Emperor and Vader. And it was like, okay, that probably wouldn't happen that way. But
well, because it's all a mind trick. The Vader fan film. It's all in the mind of Vader.
Oh, really?
And you're not really. It's not really clear whether it's a flashback memory, or whether it is actually Palpatine inducing visions into Vader.
Oh,
is it the one from Star Wars fan? Is it from the one from Star Wars Theory, or is it another one?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, so I have it right here, so we can show it this month after we finish off.
I think I've seen it. I think I barely remember. That's probably why I didn't like it that much. But Star Wars is never meant to be that deep. And when you have the format of a video game where you have 40 hours to expand upon ideas, then you can make it deep, you can make it connected, you can make it all kinds of complicated. Mm-hmm. And that's what we got in KOTOR 1 and 2. Trying to translate that to film, to TV is hard. It's very, very difficult. And, I don't think we're ever going to get a remake. I don't think we're going to get a sequel. And I really think it's dead. I can't see Star Wars surviving any further.
Yeah. Not under Disney. And it's not because Disney doesn't want it to survive. Because Disney, under socialist control, wants to destroy everything because that is the purpose of the culture war. It's to turn everything into propaganda so that you can't escape the propaganda. Propaganda doesn't sell, so everything that is made into propaganda becomes horrible. And that also tarnishes your memory of the original, because then every time you watch the original, you have to actively block out the memory that, they made this horrible thing out of it later. The only people who will not be tarnished by that is the next generation that you can tell, watch these ones, but ignore all the others. It's basically what we do already with movie franchises in the past, where you have the good movies and then you have the other weird ones that we say, don't watch that one. Don't watch Alien 3, for example. Don't watch Alien 4. Watch Jurassic Park 1, then just ignore.
I mean,
it's the kind of the same thing.
I don't remember anything about Jurassic Park 2, but Jurassic Park 3 is funny. It really is a really funny movie.
Okay. All right.
I still remember that.
But
I still remember that ringtone.
But anyway, anyone who is interested in good Star Wars and hasn't seen it yet, look for the fan film X-Wing. I had a slightly different name, but it's basically just an X-Wing mission, and it is completely fits the aesthetic of and how missions went in the old X-Wing and TIE Fighter games from the 90s. You'll love it.
I always like
and
the.
Whisp, I looked it up, and I believe it's in Shadows of the Empire, where you should be able to find Luke Skywalker building his lightsaber.
What? What are you talking about?
Luke Skywalker building his lightsaber. I looked it up, and I believe it's in Shadows of the Empire.
That they actually show it?
The book.
The book? Okay.
Yeah, it should be in that book somewhere.
Okay.
Well, I always liked the Rescue Mission fan film. It's got some problems, but that's the one I thought was really good. Did Revan very well. And that's primarily what I care about with Star Wars is KOTOR 1 and 2. So that's always worked for me. All the stuff with the Darth Vader stuff. That's kind of goofy. Same with Darth Maul. Well, the Darth Maul fighting is actually pretty good, but
the Darth Maul fan film I find is really good because there are a lot of subtle elements in the storytelling there. Between the actors are damn good.
oh yeah, the fighting is amazing.
If you look,
yeah.
if you look at the facial expressions, there is a story there that is not spoken aloud. Where the Darth Maul actor, he does all these very little facial expressions where you can read. He actually wants to subvert Palpatine, wants to go against him, wants to take the female Jedi that he's beating. He's not beating her down to torture her. He wants to get her on his side. He wants her to join him, but he can't really do it because he's under the supervision of Palpatine all the time with the camera drones.
Is it that one I just posted?
Yeah, that one. That's you look at the facial expressions, and that is what tells the second layer of the story.
Yeah, for reference, it's the one called Darth Maul Apprentice by T7 Pro. That's the one we're talking about.
Yeah, that thing is peak cinema. And yeah, smart. If you have time and you haven't seen the X-Wing movie, we can watch it afterwards.
Well, it's always good.
It's always good.
Take a break from my writing, so it's nice to absorb different media. My brain's in another world, so that always helps.
Cool.
Anyway, I think we're good to go. It's over 2.5 hours. I think we've expanded upon this way too much for the length of the video. But yeah, no, it was good to do Star Wars once in a while and not hurt my brain, which was nice.
Rough start, but then pretty much most of the rest of it was on point.
It's all subjective to me, so
Yeah. He can work on his script, but yeah, Smut, don't cut yourself off again.
okay. Thank you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Happy Good Monday. Whatever. What is it? Easter Monday? There we go. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So I hope everyone had a great weekend. I know I've been busy cleaning up after family get together, so just taking it easy. I hope you guys do too. So good night.
Good night.
Goodbye.
That's that.